Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. I am Senator Maddie Daughtry. We have a big morning of one work session and some public hearings, but we're going to first start with introductions. As I said, I'm Maddie Daughtry and I represent Senate District 24, which are the communities of Brunswick, Harpswell, North Yarmouth, Freeport, and Pownell. And I will kick it over to my esteemed House Co-Chair, Representative Sylvester.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Representative Mike Sylvester. I represent District 39, which is the Eastern Peninsula portion of Portland and the Fighting Islands of Casco Bay. We'll be keeping the time today in this committee. We have a 3-minute time limit on folks who are testifying as we get to the public hearings, and I'll talk a little bit more about that then, but basically I'll be holding up, for folks in the gallery who are new, I'll be holding up my phone at the beginning to see that it's live, and then 30 seconds I'll hold it up. No need to panic at that point, but you might want to consider thinking about ending your testimony in about 30 seconds. And if not, I'll come in and let you know. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Sylvester. Senator Hickman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Greg Hickman. I represent Senate District 14, 11 towns in Southern Kennebec County, including my hometown of Winthrop.
Thank you. And Senator Guerin.
Good morning. I'm Senator Stacey Guerin. I represent Senate District 10, the good country people in rural communities.
Thank you. Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you and good morning. I'm Representative Dick Bradstreet from House District 80, and that is comprised of part of Augusta, Somerville, Windsor, and my hometown of Vassalboro.
Representative Cuddy.
Good morning. My name is Scott Cuddy. I represent House District 98, which is Winterport, Frankfort, Searsport, and Swanville, and I live in Winterport.
Thank you so much. Representative Drinkwater.
Greetings from snowy Milford. This is Representative Gary Drinkwater, representing District 121.
Thank you. And Representative Gear.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tracy Gear. I represent District 9, which is Kennebunkport and Coastal Biddeford and Kennebunk, the coast with the most.
Representative Morris.
Good morning. I'm Representative Joshua Morris. I represent House District 75, which is Turner, Leeds, and part of Livermore.
Thank you. Representative Pepworth.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Pepworth. I represent House District 133 in the Blue Hill Peninsula.
Thank you. And Representative Prescott.
I'm Dwayne Prescott. I represent Waterboro and Lyman, House District 17.
Thank you. And Representative Rader.
Hi, Amy Rader. I represent House District 125, which is a portion of Bangor.
Thank you. And Representative Warren.
My name's Representative Sophie Warren, and I'm fortunate to represent part of my hometown here in Scarborough, Maine.
Thank you so much. We had a wonderful reminder about time for public hearings from Representative Sylvester, and also another reminder for folks watching. We are in the full swing of things in this legislative session, so you'll be seeing legislators potentially coming and going due to having bills and presentations in other committees, myself included. So please know if you see us popping in and out of the screen, that's what's going on. It's a little different than running out into the hallway and jumping over the next committee, but we make it work in the cyberspace reality that we're all existing in. We've had a few changes to the schedule. We'll actually be starting with a work session and then going to the public hearings. So with that, just to remind folks, we'll be having the work session on LD 1808, which I'll open right now and turn to our analyst, Steve, if you wouldn't mind screen sharing the amendment so we can go over it. Thank you.
Sure.
So if you recall, on Monday, we had a work session on this bill, and what this bill does is it makes retroactive employees in the Department of Public Safety and the Crime Lab or Computer Crimes Unit. So last session, they were placed into the 1998 special plan, but the way it works is that was prospectively, so going forward. So if they had been in the 1998 special plan prior to October 1st of last year, what happens is there's this split age reduction, which means that their benefits are reduced if they retire early before reaching their normal retirement age of 60, 62, or 65, depending on when they entered service. Whereas under the special plan, the benefit is only reduced if the retirement is prior to age 55. So this bill, as drafted, LD 1808, makes it so that all of the service for folks in this category and is calculated under the 1998 special plan, regardless of when they started working for the crime lab or computer crimes unit. If you recall, there were a couple of points brought up at the work session. The retirement system specified that it was correct as drafted, but it was in unallocated language, and that's not typically the way that this is done. So what this amendment does is it simply codifies what LD 1808 did as drafted in unallocated language, but puts it in statute. I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
Do you have any questions? Oh, what happened to my video? Hold on. Do I have any questions from the committee at this time? Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just reading Maine Pier's letter, and that said some language needs to be changed, and I'm assuming you'll work with Kathy on taking care of that.
Yes,
Very
I
good.
already did in preparation for today's work session.
Excellent. Thank you.
Representative Cuddy.
Thank you, Senator. Steve, can you, my brain is going very slowly this morning. Can you remind me the difference between allocated and unallocated language, please?
Sure. So unallocated language is what you would see in a bill that's not underlined. So it doesn't actually go into the statutes. It has the same effect and force as law, but it's not easily accessible. So if you were to go onto the legislature's website, you would not be able to find it if you started looking through the Maine revised statutes. You'd have to go into the enacted law. So it has the same force and effect as law, but it's just not as easily accessible to those looking for it in the statutes.
Thank you.
Do I have any other questions from the committee? Representative Rader.
Sorry, just had a quick question of clarification. So on part 2, items A and B, just so I can be really clear, it's either 55 years of age with 10 years service or 25 years of credible service.
That's correct.
Great,
And that's
thank you.
the benefit of the 1998 special plan. Yep.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Representative Rader. Do you have any other questions? I'm sorry, I'm still getting up to speed. This is retroactive, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Senator Garin?
Are you ready for motion, Madam Chair?
I think so.
I would move that to pass with the amended language.
Wonderful. And do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Representative Warren. Do I have any discussion on the motion in front of us? Representative Cuddy.
Thank you, Senator. If I'm remembering the public hearing on this right, part of the reason that this became an issue in the past was that the people who are doing the work didn't have a chance to look the bill over. And I'm wondering if we can give them a chance to look at this. This all seems right. It seems like what we want to do. It seems like a good idea, but I'm wondering if we can give them time to look the bill over prior to moving it forward so that we don't, you know, I don't know if this is the 3rd or 4th time that we've addressed this issue since I came on, and I'm really, we've got to get this right this time. And so I think if we can take a day or a day or two and let them have time to look it over, I would appreciate that.
Definitely. And the other thing we can do is if we do pass something out, we will be getting it back from language review. So we would have another chance to make sure that it got out to everyone and then reconsider at language review should we need to make any adjustments. But yes, we should definitely make sure the folks impacted are able to view this language. Representative Sylvester and then Representative Warren.
I was going to make that same exact point, and just to point out that we made sure that Senator Diamond saw the bill as well, and to make sure that we're like 98% sure we're there. So, but I'm with you on that. These bills that we see 6, 7 times, you want to make sure you get them right. So, but I'm pretty sure we're there, and we will get to see it in language review, and I'll make sure to follow up on that.
Thank you. Representative Warren?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what was said. Thank you, Representative Cuddy. I hope that we can pass it through today and then reconsider if needed at language review.
Absolutely. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, we have a motion that ought to pass as amended on the floor. Justin, would you mind calling the roll, please?
Senator Daughtry.
Yay.
Senator Daughtry, yay. Senator Gearin.
Yay.
Senator Gearin, yay. Senator Hickman.
Yay.
Senator Hickman, yay. Representative Sylvester.
Yay.
Representative Sylvester, yay. Representative Bradstreet.
Yay.
Representative Bradstreet, yay. Representative Cuddy.
Yay.
Representative Cuddy, yay. Representative Drinkwater.
Yay.
Representative Drinkwater, yay. Representative Gear.
Yes.
Representative Gear, yes. Representative Morris.
Yes.
Representative Morris, yes. Representative Pebworth.
Yay.
Representative Pebworth, was that yay or nay? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Representative Pebworth, yes. Representative Prescott.
Yes.
Representative Prescott, yes. Representative Rader.
Yes.
Representative Rader, yes. And Representative Warren.
Yes.
Representative Warren, yes. So all in favor of ought to pass as amended.
Wonderful. It is unanimous of those present and voting. Thank you to everyone on the committee, and thank you to our analysts for being able to get that ready. We'll make sure, as we said, we'll be seeing this again for language review, and we'll make sure that those involved are able to see the language and review it. So with that, I will close the work session on LD 1808. And we are going to transition to our public hearings. As a reminder for folks, public hearings are a chance to solicit input from the public as well as involved stakeholders. And this is a reminder that this is a time to ask questions. Also, most importantly, a reminder for folks coming before the committee, your testimony is public. Not only is written testimony placed into the legislative file, but everything is being streamed live and recorded. So as I have said before, and will always say every morning, please don't say anything you wouldn't want your grandmother to hear coming out of your mouth or have preserved for all posterity. So with that, we're going to move on to our public hearings. So up first, we have, Justin, do we have Representative Harnett with us? I think so. I can check let's see, going through. I am not, let's see. Representative Harnett, if you are in the waiting room, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand.
Senator, I'm going to give him a quick call.
Okay. Give him a quick second while I peruse to see who else is here for sponsors. I am seeing Representative Fay, who is here for the next bill. So I don't know if we want to switch around the order.
I think that's wise.
I think we're going to go with that. So Representative Fay, I'm going to port you through the wormhole. So 1 second. And I see Representative Fay is starting to join us. So with that, I'm going to open the public hearing on LD 1891, an act to continue supporting safe drinking water for families. And I am pleased to introduce the bill's sponsor, Representative Fay. Representative Fay, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Senator Daughtry. Can everyone hear me okay? Awesome. You're all slowly popping up on my screen in that way that makes me wonder how stable my internet connection is this morning. So hopefully we'll get through this without me disappearing unintentionally. Thank you for the opportunity to present this bill. Good morning, Senator Daughtry and Representative Sylvester, and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. I'm Jessica Fay, and I represent House District 66, which is parts of the towns of Casco, Poland, and Raymond. I'm here today presenting LD 1891, an act to continue supporting safe drinking water for Maine families. What is more fundamental to the health of Maine people than access to clean drinking water? There are federal and state safeguards in place for those whose water comes from public water supplies, but less than 50% of Mainers get their drinking water from a public water supply. For the majority of Mainers whose drinking water comes from private wells, we don't know if our water is safe unless we test it. Last session, the HHS committee unanimously saw the wisdom in providing free well water testing for arsenic for low-income households. Naturally occurring arsenic and other emerging contaminants like PFAS can cause significant health problems and even developmental issues in young children. While testing may be free for lower income folks, what happens once a private residential well is found to have unsafe levels of contaminants? Since bipartisan legislation was passed in 2017, Maine Housing has been successfully operating a grant program that provides qualified households and landlords with options for treatment systems at point of access or point of use, depending on factors on the ground. This program has successfully completed 663 projects at an average cost of $3,700, using most of the $700,000 in funds appropriated in 2016 and 2018. There's approximately $93,000 remaining from those original allocations. The testing program and the abatement program should work in tandem to help people on fixed incomes, retirees, older Mainers on Social Security, low-wage workers, and others to afford clean drinking water at home. Lack of access to clean water can increase healthcare and education costs, which we all bear. This bill requests a one-time $500,000 appropriation in order to replenish the fund, with the anticipation that with increased testing, we will need increased mitigation. Additionally, with the arrival of newly discovered contaminants like PFAS, it's possible that demand will outstrip funding. Because we don't know what the impact of increased testing will have on demand, it makes sense to take a measured approach towards funding. And I believe this request does that. I hope that this committee agrees and we can make sure all Mainers have access to safe drinking water. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Representative Fay. Do you have any questions from the committee? Representative Prescott.
Well, thank you. I understand there's still some money left in the fund, so it's not completely dry yet. How much is that?
$93,000, as far as I know. That may have changed in the last couple of months, but I think Representative from Maine Housing is here or will be here, so possibly that would be a better question for him.
All right, well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions from the committee? Representative Sylvester.
Thank you. This is a question for either you, Representative Fay, or somebody coming behind you. I'm just curious what the average cost of mitigation is. You know, it's good to know how far we can stretch that 93,000. So it's probably for someone coming behind you, but
yeah, someone might have a more exact figure, but I would say it depends on the type of mitigation. There's a couple of types of mitigation that I believe this grant program funds, and I mentioned it: point of source and point of entry and point of use. One is like the under counter filter that can filter out a lot of stuff. That's a little less expensive than doing one of the big whole system filters that you may have to use for some other for some specific types of contaminants. But I think it's you assess the system on the ground and see what's necessary.
Thank you. Representative Warren, did you have your hand up? Okay, Representative Gear.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for presenting this bill, Representative Fay. I'm curious as to whether we have any preliminary testing results regarding PFAS in wells specifically at this point, and that could be for someone coming after you, but I'm just curious.
That's a big question. I mean, I think we've all heard in the news about, you know, some of the work that DEP is doing, and that's a different program. I think the anticipation is that at some point, you know, that program will shift. I mean, I'll just say it's a big issue. Right now, DEP is doing a lot with PFAS in well water. But I'm pretty sure that problem isn't going away anytime soon. I think mostly we're thinking about arsenic and radon and some of the more naturally occurring contaminants right now. I think PFAS is something to think about and keep in mind for the future.
Thank you.
Representative Warren.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing this bill forward. It's a very important issue. I guess maybe it's a philosophical question, sort of, but I'm curious. My instinct is that I hope to see a bill like this on these issues in a place like tax. I'm feeling that it's important that it's done, but I wonder about, you know, where this money is coming from, and thinking about big polluters that have benefited so much from Maine resources and Maine people, thinking that making a more equitable trade, I think, to maybe right historical wrongs that have to do with some of these contaminations. But maybe this is it's just such a widespread issue. It's hard to identify bad actors. And I just thought I'd ask you about where these funds come from, and maybe if there's a future opportunity to maybe more balance the scales in that way.
Thanks, Representative Warren. So I have a couple thoughts about that. The first one is that, again, contaminants like arsenic, radon are naturally occurring. So I don't think we can point to a particular, you know, entity who would be responsible for that type of mitigation. PFAS is ubiquitous, and I know that there's a number of efforts nationwide and also in the state to try to get at what a mitigation funding source would be. I think if it's something that you're interested in, you know, as a representative, you have the power to tackle that issue, and I would encourage you to dig deeper into that. For the purposes of this bill, you know, I think that it's important that we make sure that people have access to clean drinking water. And at this point, those big questions will be addressed. You know, and I think as a body, as a legislature, we can do that. But right now on the ground, there are people who have contaminated wells that could use this.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much, Representative Fay, for being here to present the bill and for your time this morning.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to testimony, and I think up first, I'm going to promote the good Honorable Eric Jorgensen. Brought him over. And following Eric Jorgensen, we will be having Isadora testify, followed by Keegan Pohen from Westbrook, to let people know who's on deck. With that, Mr. Jorgensen, the floor is yours, and lovely to see you as always.
It's great to see all of you. Nice to see everybody again. It's been a long off session. Senator Daughtry, Representative Sylvester, esteemed members of the Labor and Housing Committee, my name is Eric Jorgensen. I'm the Senior Director of Government Relations and Communications at the Maine State Housing Authority, which we call Maine Housing. We support LD 1891. It's a short and very simple bill, just one paragraph, but it's a short paragraph that has a disproportionately long potential impact. It provides continued support for the well water remediation program, which has in the years since it passed in the 127th legislature, chugged along quietly. having served more than 600 households in all parts of the state. We get, a few calls a week on it, and we're able to help. It's a program that disproportionately benefits residents of rural areas where households rely on wells. And it's important to point out that wells in even the most pristine places can be subject to contamination, as arsenic is a naturally occurring element found throughout New England's geology, as are some of the other things that get into the wells. If you're part of a public water supply, issues like bacterial contamination, arsenic, radon, and other nasty things that can come out of the tap are largely not things you worry about. But if you own your own well, the issues are different, and remediation, which generally involves the installation of filters, can be out of financial reach. Up till now, this program has focused on arsenic remediation, and were this measure to pass, the program would be extended. I think it would continue to focus on arsenic, but its scope would also potentially expand to include remediation for other types of well contaminants. The program provides grants to eligible single-family homeowners or landlords with private well water that shows evidence of high levels of contamination. I will say that the program is narrowly focused. It is and would continue to be available to households at or below 120% of area median income, whose liquid assets are limited. So we do income and asset tests. In short, it's designed to reach those residents who are least likely to be able to afford this type of remediation on their own. And I think while it's hard to know precisely how many non-arsenic cases would come before us, and whether there be a significantly different sort of protocol to remediate a different type of contaminant, we do know that arsenic, this is getting at the question that was asked earlier, the cost to filter the water in an average household in this program, just short of $3,800 per project. That's for arsenic. And there are different types of filtration that in each household is different. So it's hard to predict with certainty how long these funds would last or how many households could be reached. But I do think that our track record in the arsenic program provides a general guide. And in my mind, there's no doubt about the public health benefits of reducing hazards in well water. I'll end by saying that bad well water begets bad outcomes. Arsenic can cause cancer and low birth weight infants. Lead, as we all know, can cause long-term intellectual damage. Other contaminants just make people sick in other ways. And while so many health issues today seem insurmountable, well water problems can often be solved in a very straightforward and often very cost-effective way. So my grandmother in Buckfield used to hand me a glass of water from her well and she'd say without fail, "Now taste that good Maine water." And she was right. The water in this state is delicious, at least in that well it was, some of the best anywhere. And with this bill, we move a step closer to assuring that our water is in fact as safe as it is refreshing. So Maine Housing looks forward to continuing this important service for our state, and we thank Representative Fay for bringing the bill forward. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jorgensen. I have Representative Sylvester, followed by Representative Cuddy, followed by Representative Bourne, followed by Representative Bradsheet, followed by Representative Pebworth. So just brace.
Okay, I'm ready.
Thank you. So my question's very quick. Is the money in the fund is used strictly for the cost of filters? There's no overhead coming out of that. There's no publicity coming out of that. There's no.
Well, I think so. I'll get that for the work session. I'm not sure. I think there may be an administrative element to it. Like I think it was $93,000. I can check on that. I think that's what or $93,000 is what's left. I think there was a little bit of money in there to help run the program, but it's not much. And I'll find out what that was.
Thank you, Representative Cuddy.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Mr. Jorgensen, for being here today. And I wanted to ask, so often in this committee, we hear about sort of rural versus urban, and a lot of the money that we spent goes into urban areas. And this is money that seems to me like is going to be primarily rural money. What do you have a breakdown? Do you have a sense of that? Is that something you could get for the work session?
I can find that too. I'll work on that. I think we have information on the number of, I think the percentage of people that have wells in the state, that is a known number. I just don't know it, but I can find that out. Yeah, but it is, I would characterize this as a rural program primarily, just because of the fact that people in rural areas don't tend to have city water. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Jorgensen, for being here. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
A couple of quick questions. This could be used for a private multifamily situation, can it not?
Yeah.
Under right circumstances?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. It has to be, this program is designed, as it's been designed, the landlord has to fall within certain income category, income levels. So, but I do believe there's an adjustment based on the number of units, and I will also get more information on the specifics of that. I know it's for multifamilies as well as individual houses. I'm just not quite sure of the parameters, how that works. I can find that out too.
That's okay. And also, is this related? Do you do anything with the Maine Rural Water Drinking Program, or is this something that's a little bit different from what they do?
This is different, I think, and I don't know exactly how that connects, but I'll also find that out. I apologize for not knowing more about this. This kind of snuck up on me a little bit, but I can definitely look at that too.
Thank you. Representative Hepworth.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Jorgensen, for being here. I've heard what a good assistance this program is, and I can understand that many households can't come up with something like $3,800 to improve their well. So one, I'm curious if you can sort of talk us through how the program actually works. And then when we talk about filters, I wonder about ongoing supplies, if that is a piece of this program as well, or what happens then. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a filter in your house and it's been used for years and years, or for beyond its shelf life, it does become a problem because it concentrates the contaminants. So I would have to, I'll look into how the subsequent replacement of the filter elements gets handled. But the way the program works is the person needing this service calls Maine Housing, and we contract with a consultant who will come in, or we've got a series of people around the state who do this work, who are well water mitigation people, experts who come in, and they'll go into your house and they'll look at it. And sometimes it's a under the sink kind of arrangement. Sometimes it's a full house solution thing that might go in your cellar where the water comes in, and they figure out the most cost effective or most effective and hopefully most cost effective approach and go with it that way. So that's how it goes. But I think the interesting thing there is a really good question about what happens when, what happens when the filters get full, or they get over, when they reach the end of their lifespan, how does that work? So I'll find out about that.
Thank you. I have Senator Guerin, followed by Representative Gear, followed by Representative Bradshaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Mr. Jorgensen. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Senator.
My question is related to the cost of radon arsenic remediation as compared to PFAS. Is PFAS going to be a lot more expensive, so wipe out our funds that would be for the other two, or?
Well, I heard the question about PFAS asked earlier, and I actually sent up a lifeline to people in my office, and I haven't heard back from them, because my impression is that PFAS is a whole different kind of approach. I don't think it's necessarily the solution. I do not believe is the same for that as it is for some of the other things. So I think it's a more complex remediation process. So I'm not sure about whether this program can handle PFAS or not, but I'll find out about that. I suspect I think it's a more expensive remediation.
Do you think
based on what I know, but I can find out what I can. I'll definitely look into that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I have Representative Gear, followed by Representative Bradstreet, followed by Representative Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and nice to see you, Mr. Jorgensen. The question that I have has to do with, and it could be in the bill or in the current law, but I'm just trying to figure out how people find out if they need this service. Is there a testing component that's already in there? and, it's kind of one of those things of, what you don't know can hurt you. And if we're not kind of reaching out and making sure people are getting their wells tested, they're not going to know that this is even available to them. So is that a piece already, or is that something that would need to be added?
I don't think it's part of this program. I think the program is really just for the remediation part. And I think people get referred to the program based on water testing or other types of, I think they go to this, like they might go to the Heddle lab or something, it's in their lab, or I don't know who does the water testing, but it usually comes in as a result of that. And the program, I don't believe, has a lot of money attached to it for publicity. However, we do, we have it on our website and we use it for, we do make people aware of it, and through the network of people that we work with. But again, I will find out about that. It seems like that's my response. My standard response today has been, I will find out about it, but I promise I will, and I will get back to you.
Thank you. And just quick follow-up, Madam Chair.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing that's interesting, when we think about wells, we use the terms broadly rural and urban. I think that wells are everywhere, and certainly, throughout coastal Maine, there are folks that are on town water, and then you get a few miles outside of town and everyone's on a well. So any outreach or any communication about this should really focus on everyone that's affected by this issue.
I would agree. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you. Representative Bradstreet, followed by Representative Warren.
Okay, thankfully not a question, just a comment, really. My water has arsenic contamination. I have it under the sink filter. We have it monitored. We change it about annually. My son who lives right next door has his changed a little bit more often, so it does vary all over the place. But it is it's a very effective way of mitigating the arsenic.
Representative Bradstreet, you got to learn my favorite trick that I learned in education is, wouldn't you agree that works great for filtering water? To turn your statement into a question.
Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. Yeah.
Thank you. Representative Warren.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your testimony today. To pick up on the allocations question that I was asking Representative Fay about earlier, this does come from the general fund. It seems like a very important, very effective, very no-nonsense allocation and grant program, and I agree with it 100%. And yet I am just curious, perhaps as we find more, maybe due to how effective this program is, and by the way, I have no problem like advertising about it. It's good, good governance. It's I don't think it's clearly political. It's just public health, basic kind of stuff, and so I don't even mind that. And yet I'm just wondering, do you feel there is any kind of relationship that is or ought to be between perhaps big polluters in the state of Maine, or those that benefit from the resources of Maine, and then on the other hand, this kind of element, unfortunately, of naturally occurring part of Maine as well that does kind of infect our water, and we want to make sure to keep people safe. But I'm just trying to think about how to make this fund sustainable, especially if things like PFAS are going to be costing more to make right in some way.
Well, that's a policy question that you guys have to figure out. That's not one for me, I'm afraid. I totally think it's a legitimate question to ask about, holding polluters responsible. I think in this case, though, in so many cases, so much of what we're dealing with here has to do with the structure of the rock below Maine and the land and all the different geological forces. I mean, in this case, there's also the possibility you might be dealing with contamination of, biological material, that kind of stuff from a farm or something. So I guess my point is, I would just say, this is one of those few things where you can actually make a real difference for a low price. It's a little like radon. I mean, it's one of those things that it's not good to have radon in your house, but it's actually a pretty easy fix in the grand scheme of things. And so I would just say, sticking to that, I would just say that this is just a really good idea for all sorts of reasons. And I don't think I don't think looking at pollution and who's doing the pollution is a bad thing for you guys to be thinking about. I think it's an important thing, but I don't think it's something that this program would be associated with.
Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I do have a question, but I'm gonna have to give an opening statement. My daughter and son-in-law bought a house in North Yarmouth. And upon doing a home inspection, part of it was a water test. It came back very high for arsenic and radon. And they negotiated a price of remediation, which was around $10,000 to fix it. And we're talking about polluters. Having intimate knowledge of the Plymouth waste oil site from the mid-'80s, I can tell you that the government will find out who contributed to PFAS and they will get a bill. My question is, do you share a pamphlet? Do you give pamphlets to the cities and towns to put it like on a bulletin board to say, hey, you know, there's this program? Because I live in a small town with a lot of wells, and this is the first I've heard of this program. And that would be very helpful to get the word out there that, hey, there is a program to help people with remediation of contaminants. So do you advertise it all that way with pamphlets?
I don't know. Again, it's a program that's in a larger, it's part of a larger program we provide for various emergency home services. And whether it's home repairs, fixing roofs that are leaking, whether it's dealing with structural problems in your house. So this remediation comes into that particular program, which we do advertise. But let me find out. I can find out details of how we get the word out about this, and whether we do talk. I think we do talk to municipalities. I know we do, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how we do that. So I'll find that out.
And just to close, that Plymouth waste oil site cost tens of millions of dollars to put in a public water system, of which the state of Maine recommended we car dealers give our oil to Mr. West, who then proceeded to let it drip into the bedrock and contaminate wells. And it was found out about somebody that bought a house and had the well tested. So thank you, Mr. Jergensen.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. I do at this point, I've been informed that my bill is up in education, so I'm going to need to virtually pass the gavel over to Representative Sylvester and let him continue on with the rest of the public hearing. I will be back.
All right. Good luck, Senator. Are there any other questions for Mr. Jorgensen? Seeing none, thank you for your time today, sir.
You're very welcome. I will get those things put together and get them off to you shortly.
Perfect. We appreciate you as always.
Bye-bye.
Be well. I believe next we have, who's next, Mr. Purvis? I was answering another question offline.
We have Isadora.
Perfect. We'll bring in, yep, Isadora Muna Segovia, and you have the Zoom whenever you're ready.
Awesome. Thank you. I hope you can hear me well. Senator Bennett, Representative Fay, and honorable members of the Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Isidora Muñoz Segovia. I'm a resident of Bar Harbor and a student at College of the Atlantic. And I'm here today to testify in favor of LD 1891. Low-income communities should not be prevented from having access to clean water. We must refund the Maine State Housing Authority to subsidize filters and remediation systems to families in need. And after working with the MDI Biolab and College of the Atlantic on the All About Arsenic project for the last 2 years, as a researcher and developer of the advocacy curriculum for teachers and students, it is undeniably clear to me the need to prioritize the issue of arsenic in our waters, and it should be in the forefront of our agendas as it is today. So Maine, as you know, has one of the nation's highest reliance on well water, with more than 50% of Mainers relying on this water system. And at the same time, Maine also has a bladder cancer rate of 20% higher than the rest of the nation, which comes as no surprise when acknowledging that arsenic causes different types of cancer, such as bladder, skin, and lung cancer. So when we look at the situation of arsenic in our state, after the 2017 bipartisan legislation was passed and more than 662 households have benefited from the program, this has proven to be a very successful initiative, and it should continue to provide accessibility to families in need to ensure safe drinking water. I also just wanted to make sure, like, to provide my own personal insight to like how it has been to be related to this project and like this issue of health in our state. And when thinking about who is at risk, when we look at like who has accessibility to filters in their house, as we mentioned right before, like I can talk, like this will provide accessibility to rural areas in Maine. And having in mind that 70,000 Mainers live below the federal poverty level, and that like having water systems in their house is like quite expensive to provide if you don't have like subsidized or other type of support. I think this type of program will really make sure that the reach and accessibility for safe water does not only stay for those who have the means and the economical stability to put that in their houses, but also will reach to other communities and other families. And also, I will also like to include that through the All About Arsenic project, we reach many communities through the students. And with the information that we have collected and the data that we have, now having this accessibility to safe water would provide no other burden or like no other challenge to really achieve safe water in people's houses, which is often the case of, oh, we know there's this problem with us, but many people, many people don't do anything, and now we have accessibility to this. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there for you and support the LD 1891. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Munoz Segovia. Are there any questions from the committee for Ms. Munoz Segovia? I had a quick one. How many students are involved in the program? Do you have a sense of that?
I don't know right now, but I know that we'll have another speaker coming to testify, which I'm sure they will be ready to answer that question for you.
All right, perfect. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your testimony today.
Thank you.
Next, we are going to have Keegan Pohan, followed by Lainey Graham, followed by Megan Hannon. And Mr. Pohan, if you want to go ahead and turn on your camera and microphone. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep. Go ahead. Yes, Justin.
Okay, go. Oh yeah. Well, I wanted to point out that my my classmate Ryan was also signed up to be here, but I haven't heard any mention of him in here.
Okay.
We do have. Sorry, we do have Ryan in the waiting room. He should be called forward at some point.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll call forward as we go here. We're going a little out of order, so we'll bring people into the room. We'll let you know where you are on deck, and then we'll bring you forward to testify. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Ms. Bowen, you are Keegan Bowen. You're ready to go.
Thank you. I'm a senior from Westbrook High School, and I wanted to say the Maine APA has suggested the maximum amount of arsenic before it's considered to have adverse effects on humans to be 10 micrograms of arsenic per liter, but it's under review as well that this limit might be set to 5 instead of 10, as it is in like New Hampshire. And yet some wells in Maine are contaminated with nearly 1,000 micrograms of arsenic per liter. That concentration of arsenic in some wells is a serious public health issue, and I don't see it as something the state can simply expect people to deal with themselves. Luckily, in 2017, legislation was passed that provided low-income families with funds for arsenic testing. I'm relieved that barriers to healthy drinking water for all Mainers are being taken down, but Maine's problems with arsenic contamination are severe, and I hope that previous advances don't lead us to think that our job is finished yet. Despite the state's advances in providing arsenic testing for low-income communities, it doesn't necessarily mean that every well is getting fixed. The process of treating wells for contamination remains extremely expensive in some cases. So, like, say that you're somebody who's living off of contaminated water and that you have had your water tested. At this point, the multiple processes to get your well water tested and treated are, well, it's already been tested, to get your well water cleaned and treated are entirely up to you. And some wells are like increasingly expensive to remediate depending on the level of contamination. The arsenic contamination is a widespread health problem in our state, and yet if it was you, you wouldn't be given the same help because it's your private well. The way it is now, there's little support for you and your family, and how can we ethically just leave these people to themselves when the consequences are so drastic? The issue has expanded such that relying on individuals' actions to fix their own contamination cannot really help the widespread contamination across Maine. And this is what LD 1891 aims to solve. I think there needs to be organized action across our state in order to aid those affected, as well as prevent the contamination of well water before people are harmed in the first place.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from the committee for Keegan Poen? Representative Warren.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for being here today and for your testimony. If it's relevant to you and the work that you do, would you have any sense or give any perspective on where we're at in maybe how many people have been positively impacted so far versus maybe how we could imagine how many more people need this service?
I'm not entirely sure. Most of our research in the classroom has been around the testing part of it, which has been you've done work on that. Thank you. I mostly. Okay. I guess I'm just not really sure. Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's on me. I have a lot of expertise, and so I just assumed. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your testimony.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Are there any other questions for Keegan Poen? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here today. And we bring forth Lonnie Graham. Welcome, Lonnie.
Yes, good morning, Representative Sylvester and members of the committee. I'm sorry to miss Senator Daughtry, who is my very own senator. My name is Lonnie Graham. I'm a family practice physician and former chief public health officer for the state. Currently, I serve on the Public Health Committee for the Maine Medical Association, and I'm here in support of this bill on behalf of the Maine Medical Association. As my area of expertise is health, I wanted to briefly mention that arsenic is a naturally occurring element that, like several other members of the periodic table, notably lead and mercury, is associated with a number of significant adverse health effects, including bladder, skin, and lung cancer, as well as adverse impacts on intelligence, cardiovascular disease, and even diabetes. Over the last several years, I've been very involved in the contamination of Maine by the chemical family known as PFAS. And indeed, this is a very serious problem, though some would argue that PFAS contamination is no more serious than arsenic contamination of Maine well water, as arsenic is more widespread. As you have heard, people on public water supplies do not need to worry, as public water supplies must conform to strict safety standards. But the rural nature of the state has led to the fact that more than 50% of Maine people are not on public water and instead get their water from private wells. And I will just say that that is the highest in the nation. For these people, including myself, unless a decision is made to test your own well water, you may not know of the contamination. And I will add that the definition of rural, as some of you have mentioned, is variable. In Freeport, I live within 5 miles of 2 public water supplies and within 20 miles of Portland, but I have my own well. In my case, I had my well water tested for a number of different contaminants and found some quite serious ones. Fortunately, I had the resources to make this testing and remediation possible. And my one family effort cost over $5,000. So it is certainly not cheap. And many cannot afford such expenditure. Access to safe water should not depend on your income. Safe drinking water is the very essence of public health, but in Maine, safe drinking water does depend on income. As a result, low-income communities are disproportionately affected. I urge the committee to support funding for safe drinking water for Maine families. And I certainly would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Lonnie Graham. Are there any questions from the committee for Lonnie Graham? I have a quick one. I've been waiting for someone to come up who had their well tested with arsenic. Do you have a garden? How would you filter water if you were going to water your garden, for example?
Well, I do have a garden. Fortunately for me, my contamination was radon, although I did have one of the highest radon levels in the state. I did not have arsenic and I did not have PFAS, but I had to test for all those things. And PFAS alone was over $500 just to test for it. So I have not filtered my water specifically, although I could for gardening. I do have a garden, and I tested the soil also, which it's also expensive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions for Lonnie Graham? Seeing none, thank you for being here today.
Glad to be here.
Welcome, Megan Hannon. The Zoom is yours whenever you're ready.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Good morning, Representative Sylvester, Senator Daughtry, honorable members of the committee. My name is Megan Hannon. I'm the Executive Director of Maine Community Action Partnership, and we support LD 1891. For more than 50 years, Community Action has served as a dynamic and community-based force in addressing the causes and conditions of poverty throughout Maine and the country. Our 10 community action agencies deliver programs and services for people with low and moderate income across the state, including the Home Energy Assistance Program, or HEAP, Workforce Development, Current Mental Relief Program, Head Start, and some also develop affordable housing. We conduct several safety tests for air and water, including arsenic in tap water. In 2017, bipartisan legislation funded the program for Maine Housing to provide funding to help remediate contaminated wells in low-income and rural Mainers' wells. Since the implementation, 662 households have benefited from the program, using community action agency connections for the testing, which I think answers one of your questions from before. Because of the success of the program, the funding that was designated is running out, and we need to appropriate more funds to make sure that Mainers in need can have access to clean drinking water. It should not depend on your income. Low-income communities, tribes, rural communities, and communities of color are disproportionately impacted and more susceptible to the health impacts and financial impacts of exposure to arsenic and other contaminants in drinking water. We've tested as many homes as we can, given the shortage of funds, and welcome additional funds to safe homes. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can. Now we're in the work session, although I have to warn you, like my friend, Mr. Jorgensen, I might have to bring some back to you.
Thank you so much, Megan Hannon. I see that Representative Prescott has a question. You are on mute, sir.
How's that? Right. Hi. We just heard testimony that it was $500 to test for just one item. Who is doing our testing for the state program?
Maine Housing is. We are part of, we're one of, I think, a few contractors, but we go in and do weatherization for homes that are, as Jorgensen talked to, if they have a hole in the roof or they need some other things to weatherize their homes. We'll go in, and while we're doing that, if there's any suspicion about the water, we'll ask them to have that tested too. It's Maine Housing that actually takes care of that, but we kind of conduit to that.
Oh, yeah, all right. All right, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Hannon? I have a quick one. I'm curious, at point of sale, is that somewhere where a prospective buyer could also request through your program to have the soil or the water tested?
I do not know the actual answer to that question, but I know when I was a home buyer that we did have water testing done. I'm on city water though, so.
Okay, curious. If you have an ability to try to suss that out, that would be great for Bill coming forward later. Thank you. Representative Morris.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I work as a realtor, so I do know some of those in terms of it. There is an opportunity for a potential home buyer to ask for a test when they make an offer, certainly to have a test done at that point. So in answer to your question specifically, there is an opportunity for that. Yes.
You are off the hook, Ms. Hannon. Did you have a question for Ms. Hannon, Representative Morris?
I did not. I knew
Okay.
that was a burning question you had, and I wanted to make sure you got an answer.
You're always there for me, Representative. Thank you. I appreciate that. Are there any other questions for Ms. Hannon? Oh, Representative Bradstreet.
Actually, not a question. I think it's a follow-up to Representative Morris's statement. I think legally there has to be a disclosure in a purchase sales agreement that they could have a water test requested. So it's the notice is out there. That's all I had to say about that.
Perfect. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, there are disclosures required too. That is true. And if they've ever had it tested, they have to disclose any results. And if it hasn't been tested, that's obviously disclosed too, so that the potential homeowner could ask.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you so much. All right, I think that's it for you, Ms. Hannon. We'll just talk amongst ourselves. And, thank you for being here today. I see that Ryan Ball has come in. Ryan, turn on your mic and
hello.
Hello. Zoom is yours.
Thank you. Hello, honorable members of this committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Ryan Ball, and I'm currently a senior at Westbrook High School in Westbrook, Maine. I'm testifying today to express my support for legislative document 1891. Noting that access to clean drinking water is a basic human right, any bill that works to bolster or aid this access should be viewed from the lens of human rights rather than through the lens of infrastructure. Here in the state of Maine, the state of Maine has the highest dependence on residential wells in the nation. In fact, approximately 56% of Maine citizens rely on wells. Additionally, because of Maine's unique geography, there is a high prevalence of arsenic and other contaminants in residential wells. These high levels of arsenic and other contaminants can cause cancer, high blood pressure, heart disease, neurological issues, among many others. What's more, the federal EPA regulation of arsenic levels set at 10 parts per billion may be too high according to some epidemiological studies. These studies have shown adverse biological effects at this arsenic level. For many, it can be a financial burden to remediate the high levels of arsenic within wells. And considering that 70,000 Mainers live below the federal poverty level, this problem will not dissipate without the passage of bills like legislative document 1891. In 2017, bipartisan legislation was passed that funded a program under the Maine Housing Authority that provided funding to low-income Mainers to help remediate contaminated wells. However, that funding is currently running out. With the $500,000 provided in this legislative document, citizens who do not have the finances to fix their water supply will now be given that opportunity. Every citizen in this state should be given access to clean drinking water, regardless of their income. And through the passage of this bill, Mainers will decrease their odds of developing adverse medical impacts from well water, whilst our state as a whole becomes more equitable and a just one, as we attempt to solve a problem that boils down to a fundamental human right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Are there any questions from the committee for Ryan Ball? Representative Warren.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your testimony. Just because you did mention a statistic about how many people have wells in the state, I'm wondering, would you have any perspective on a question that I asked someone who formerly came before us? Do you have a sense of how many have been tested and versus maybe just how much work needs to still be done in the state if a certain percentage have wells?
I know that 56% of Mainers rely on wells for drinking water. I do not have the numbers for how many have been tested or how many are contaminated with arsenic, unfortunately, but 56% do rely on well water in Maine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Ryan Ball? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate you. Thank you. We are going to have Sarah Hall next, then followed by Sarah Dunbar, followed by Sarah Woodbury. So it's a trifecta of Sarahs. Ms. Hall, you have the Zoom.
Thank you, representatives and senators. My name is Sarah Hall, and I'm a geoscience professor at College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor, Maine. As a resident of a county where 80% of people rely on private well water, and as a geoscientist who conducts research on and teaches about regional and local well quality, I'm testifying to support the proposed funding LD 1891. Through my research, I've interacted with many Hancock County private well owners that are concerned about their well water quality. With no federal regulation of private well water sources or state really, well owners are left to navigate the path to clean drinking water with only guidelines from the state. While many people are interested in clean drinking water, there are many friction points along the way, from testing to treatment to maintenance, that cause many folks to continue drinking contaminated water. And economic means is one of the main barriers to well owners that I hear about anecdotally through my research. That hundreds of households have already benefited from the legislation here that have enabled funds to aid eligible private well owners in these remediation efforts really speaks to the usefulness of this legislation. And further, this bill goes beyond serving just the rural community. Private well water serves half of Maine residents, as you've heard, and also many tourists every year, an industry that we depend on in this state. While this legislation and funding is a great opportunity for many Mainers to improve their drinking water quality, I'd also like to take this moment to report that I routinely hear of other friction points beyond economic barriers that private well owners encounter while trying to ensure their high water quality. By conducting multiple rounds of well water sampling events in my area of Mount Desert Island, some of the other friction points I've heard about are difficulty using the government websites to get information about testing and ordering their test kits, finding information about mitigation options that are available to them, and keeping up with the well maintenance. So I'm hoping that future legislation and government-sponsored initiatives can help reduce some of these barriers to well owners. As some of the main contaminants in Maine groundwater, such as arsenic and radon, are sourced from the bedrock, they're naturally occurring. And geology doesn't really care about our political boundaries, but as residents of the state of Maine, political boundaries do matter to us. And so in my view, this is an important and appropriate use of government funds. With a direct connection to future health outcomes for many Mainers, and therefore the costs associated with healthcare, this is really great and important future-looking legislation that I'd love to see. Drinking water quality is one of the most basic of human needs and is directly related to a host of health outcomes. We have the knowledge and the technology to enable clean drinking water, and I really believe we should ensure that Mainers, especially children, are able to have access to clean drinking water. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hall. I see that Representative Drinkwater has a question. My dog is snoring, so I have to turn on and off in between, and it's throwing me off here.
All right. Thank you, Professor Hall. And I don't know if you can tell by my name, but this is a near and dear bill to me. Does the College of the Atlantic offer free water testing?
It's the program that I've been working with is with the All About Arsenic program that's run out of Mount Desert Island Biological Laboratory that Isadora mentioned earlier. And that program is funded by a couple different national grants, and National Institute of Health grant, and also other smaller organizations that help pay for the test kits, and also all the teachers and students that are involved. And so it's not coming from college funding. However, I mean, they pay my salary, and there's been a lot of internal funds directed towards I think it's been 6 College of the Atlantic students who've been directly involved in doing research with this program.
My memory is that the University of Maine Cooperative Extension Service offers water testing. So I'd like to encourage you as a professor for your college, because you have a beautiful campus, by the way, to get involved and reach out, as you have already, to your area and say, hey, you know what? We have samples here to pick up, and we will test your water. So thank you, Professor Hall.
Yep, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Professor Hall? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for all your work. We certainly appreciate it. Next, we have the second of our 3 Sarahs, Sarah Dunbar. The Zoom is yours.
Oh, hi, I'm trying to get my video to work, and unfortunately it's not working. I'm not sure why. Just one second.
That's fine. If you want to go ahead, we'll.
Okay, I'll just go ahead. My name's Sarah Dunbar. I'm a 7th and 8th grade science teacher in Mount Desert Elementary School in Northeast Harbor. I've been a part of the All About Arsenic project since 2015 through the MDI Biological Laboratory. I also serve as the education specialist for the program now. I have some of my 7th and 8th grade students here who are looking to present some testimony to you. I wish you could see them. They look lovely, but for some reason it's not working. But they have testimony in support of LD 1891. So there you go.
Hi. Hi, who is this?
This is Cecilia Whitehead, Phoebe Dunbar,
Cole Lassard,
and Seneca Haney. Thank you for the chance to present to you today. We are 8th grade students at Mount Desert Elementary School, and for the last 2 years, we have participated in the All About Arsenic project. This project is a SEPA-funded project and is a collaboration with the MDI Biological Laboratory. This project includes providing well water samples to people in our community and analyzing our data collected. The data that was collected showed that the range of arsenic in the town of Mount Desert is from 0 parts per billion all the way to around 24 parts per billion. We learned about arsenic and did a class of investigation on the impact of arsenic on lettuce seed last year, and then this year we looked at the effectiveness of filtered water bottles in filtering arsenic. This project made us understand how important it is to test your well water regularly and make sure you have a low level of arsenic and other contaminants in your drinking water.
We believe the bill LD 1891 is very important. As you may know, long-term exposure to arsenic from drinking water and food can cause many forms of cancer, including skin, bladder, kidney, liver, and lung, while having a high dosage can lead to skin lesions. According to Maine All About Arsenic data, the range of arsenic in Maine is from 0 parts per billion to over 700 parts per billion. If this bill is passed and funding is available, it would make a positive impact for the people who have arsenic or other contaminants in their water.
According to Bangor Daily News, over half of Mainers rely on water for cooking, bathing, and drinking. It's estimated that well water for more than 100,000 people is contaminated by arsenic. By passing this bill, we're helping protect our residents from very severe health issues. We urge you to move this bill forward so less people are exposed to arsenic and other dangerous contaminants. We hope that you will take these points into consideration because we know how important this bill is for residents of Maine. Thank you for taking your time to listen.
Thank you so much for coming today to testify. We really appreciate you. That was some really great information, and we are so happy to have it. To the representatives who were texting me, I accidentally shut off the clock. So that wasn't a worry.
That's good. I hope you have a little more time for us because I have a couple more groups to present. Theirs are a little shorter. So if that's all right.
We certainly do.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. Our names are Grace, Leah, and Delilah. We are students at Mount Desert Elementary School in Northeast Harbor. We are here today to tell you why this bill is so important. These are some of the reasons why everybody should have access to clean, safe drinking water.
One reason is that you can get very sick if you have contaminated water. Another one is that some people don't have the money to remediate if they have contaminated water. If people don't have the money to filter their water, then they will risk their health immensely. Some people don't know that their water is contaminated, and the cost for filtration systems varies, but is usually very expensive.
We live in a rural area of Maine where we three rely on wells for our drinking water. It is important to us that wells are protected and have safe drinking water for all of those around us. We don't want our health and others at risk. Thank you for taking the time for listening to us today, and we hope you will take our points into consideration.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else who wants to testify from Mount Desert?
Yep, this is another group of 7th graders about to present.
This is Sage, Matilda, Penelope,
Berkeley,
Adele, Ellie.
We are 7th graders from Mount Desert Elementary School located on Mount Desert Island, Maine. And we believe that all people of Maine should be able to have access to clean and safe drinking water. Contamination of well water is a major issue in Maine. Over 50% of Mainers use residential wells. To get treatment for contaminated well water can be very expensive. Some people can barely afford a house, let alone a commercial treatment that costs an exorbitant amount of money. This bill is so important because it would provide grants that would allow people to have the opportunity to have safe drinking water. This would enable people to not have to worry about diseases such as diabetes and cancer in the future. Clean, healthy water should not be a privilege. It should be a right. Thank you for letting us speak our opinion about the contamination of well water.
Thank you to the four of you.
And then just one more group. This is a group of 8th graders here to present.
This is Graham, JJ.
Finley.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. We are students in Mount Desert Elementary School in Northeast Harbor, and we would like to tell you why we feel this bill is important. It is not fair that all people in Maine do not have access to healthy water. Safe drinking water is one of the basic needs for us as humans. Making sure all people have healthy water, even those who are not as privileged, to be an important priority in Maine right now. It should not be a privilege to have healthy drinking water. It should be a requirement that everyone in the state of Maine has access to it. We as Mainers need our well water to be clean because we rely on well water more than most other states in the country.
Over 50% of Mainers get their drinking water from wells, and arsenic, as well as other contaminants, can get into people's drinking water supply. According to a 2017 Baker Daily News article, kids don't perform as well and have a lower IQ when having contaminated water. Where was I? Arsenic and other contaminants pose a serious health risk. Low dose and long-term exposure to arsenic has been linked to bladder cancer. Maine's bladder cancer rate is 20% higher than the rest of the nation.
Mainers who are on municipal water are able to feel confident that their water is safe, while those who rely on well water must take on the financial burden of maintaining clean well water. Providing home filtration systems would give people more money so they could use on other things that they need more immediately, like food or electricity. This bill would make things more equitable for the less privileged in our state. So we hope you will move this bill forward and make sure it is safe for families all around Maine to drink out of their wells. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your time. And I will ask the committee. I see that Representative Gear has a question. And you have to name all of the folks who testified before you get to ask your questions, Representative Gear.
Oh, no, I'm in trouble. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And wanted to just say to you all, thank you for being here today. It's really great to see you guys as students reaching out on something that's important to you. So thank you. I also wanted to ask anyone to answer if you had during the course of this project, anything that was the most surprising thing you learned about well water in Maine. Thank you.
Look. No, does anyone go ahead, Matilda?
There was over 100,000 people in Maine that are affected by arsenic.
Penny, did you?
Also that 50% of Mainers have well water.
Okay, so the number of people that rely on well water. Did you have something?
Water can arsenic can have like an effect on IQ and actually make that suffer.
I thought that getting your arsenic fixed costs $600 to $800.
Yeah, the cost of having remediation. No other hands up. You can't see us, but.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, one more.
I was surprised. I was also surprised on how many people both and how high the levels of arsenic were, and how many people have wells that are contaminated with arsenic.
Do you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I found it crazy how few parts per billion were required for arsenic to take effect. That was pretty crazy.
Oh, one more.
1 in every 6 households in Maine that use well water have unsafe or close to unsafe levels of arsenic in their wells.
And I think one of the groups talked about it, but the data that we found in our area and then the state data that we've collected, kind of surprising how the data that we collected in classroom and part of this project and how that is showing this really big range of arsenic in our well waters across the state of Maine.
Thank you all. Great information. Good job.
Representative Rader.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Sort of a two-parter here. Folks, I think I heard you correctly in saying that you did some of your own testing. Did any of you find at your own homes that you had any arsenic contamination? And then sidebar, this is a group project and you all are slaying it in a way that my graduate classes do not. So congratulations on your group project work.
did we actually check our results?
Yeah. Yep. So for this year's project, we haven't submitted our sampling yet, but in our samples over the last few years, we open it up to teachers and community members. We did have some people who had results as high as 24 parts per billion, but for the most part, the majority of the ones that we've collected for our particular school data fell below the 10 parts per billion. Our average was, or mean was, I think 2.1. Whereas the state average of the SEPA data was
I don't remember the state average.
around 6 or 7 parts per billion.
Thank you. Representative Warren. You all set, Representative Warren? Do you have a question?
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Now we can hear you, yes.
Oh, goodness. Okay, I'm so sorry. I just, maybe I'm trying to frame this in the form of a question, but I just, isn't it amazing? And wouldn't it seem that I ought to be so appreciative that it was your group of students and the research that you did that gave me this great, very precise answer that it's approximately 100,000 or 1 in 6 households that have arsenic or otherwise unsafe levels of well water, and that I can further do some research myself, and maybe anyone else interested can look at that Bangor Daily News article that kind of helped publicize that study. Isn't that shocking? And isn't there a lot of work to do? And aren't I amazed that it was you all that helped give me that answer?
There's some really great information on the All About Arsenic website. It also shows case studies of the different work of teachers across the state that are part of this project. So that might be really informative also.
Absolutely. Taking me to school. Thank you very much.
Perfect. I want to thank you, Ms. Dunbar, for bringing your students forward today. It was certainly a joy to hear them, and to all the students, I want to commend you on being citizen scientists. It's easy to kind of go on the web and find something somebody else did, but to go out and have your own verifiable results, as a citizen scientist, I think is commendable in itself. But really, to take that one step forward and become a citizen activist by coming here today and sharing your results with us, that to me is what being a citizen in this country is. And I thank you so much, and I encourage you, one day, to be, the folks sitting in these little squares, making policy, with your ongoing creativity and curiosity. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that giggle at the end was the best. Now we will bring forward Sarah Woodbury. And Sarah, unless you have like 15 people behind you, that's going to be a hard one to top.
I was just going to say, I'm not thrilled that I get to follow that because that was amazing. So, but I will do my best. So good morning, Representative Sylvester and members of the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is Sarah Woodbury, and I am the Director of Advocacy for Defend Our Health. Defend Our Health's mission is to make sure that everyone has equal access to safe food, safe drinking water, healthy homes, and products that are toxic-free and climate-friendly. And I am here to testify in support of LD 1891. You guys have my testimony in front of you. The kids actually hit almost all the points that I had in my testimony. So what I wanted to do is go back and try to answer a couple of the questions that came up in the process of the testimony that I have answers to. So first off, in terms of Senator Guerin's question about how folks get to the Maine Housing Authority's program, the Maine Drinking Water Program under DHHS, actually, when they test, if they have folks that have high levels, they do refer them to the Maine Housing Authority. So along with the CAP programs that Megan mentioned, they are also getting referred when they get results back from DHHS. I do agree that it would be nice to have a little bit more publicity about the program so folks knew about it, but there are a couple of ways that folks are getting that information. In terms of the question you asked about the admin fee that comes with the money, the legislation that was passed in 2017 that our organization actually worked on, there is language in that original bill that allows for 15% of the money to be used by Maine Housing Authority for administrative work, whether that's publicity or staff or any of that type of stuff. So there is some language in the original bill that allows for that to happen. In terms of who does the testing, I heard a couple of people ask that. The state lab actually does the testing. So we do have environmental health lab here in the state. The results are generally sent to that state lab and they do the results. In terms of how many folks have actually tested their well, the question that Senator Warren has been asking is, or excuse me, Representative Warren, is 53.2% of Mainers have tested their well water. So there's a significant portion of the state that has not done any testing for a variety of reasons, lack of funding, barriers, unaware that they're supposed to, all of that fun stuff. And then in terms of, there has been some questions about the PFAS issue. So in terms of treatment, it can be more expensive to treat for PFAS, but quite frankly, some of the systems that they use to test higher levels of arsenic will probably also remediate for PFAS. So you're not looking at anything higher than what might be paid for like somebody that has a large percentage of arsenic in their water. The technology is somewhat similar, so you might be able to test for both or treat for both with those processes. And then in terms of just the funding for PFAS, right now the DEP is actually testing wells based on, there's a whole bunch of legislation that was passed last session. Part of that legislation was like a testing protocol. And so they are testing wells near places where contaminated sludge may have been spread, and they are paying for that testing. And if it tests over, they are paying for drinking water and for systems to be put in place to remediate for that PFAS. If somebody does test their house currently and find PFAS, they can let DEP know and get some help. However, that money is not inexhaustible. Like, they got some funding last session to be able to do that, and they have that program in place. My concern and fear is that we are going to find a lot of contaminated wells because of that, and so that funding will not be in place forever. So it's possible that some folks might need to come over to the Maine Housing Authority to ask for assistance in remediating PFAS. But in terms of
Ms. Woodbury?
Yeah, sorry, I'm at the end of my
Nope,
time.
unfortunately, you are out of time, but I am about to ask the question, were there any other questions that you weren't able to get to?
No, I think that was the last one. Yeah. So.
Okay, perfect. Representative Prescott.
Well, thank you. Hi. You said that you said 53.2% were tested. Out of that amount, how many needed filters?
That I don't know the answer to. I think Maine Housing probably has some information. We can try to find that. I did send to the committee, hopefully you guys got it, a breakdown for each of you for your districts, for folks that tested, what they found in how many folks in your district were tested, what they found, that type of stuff. But I don't know who actually remediated for it. That is an answer I do not have.
All right, well, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Woodbury? Seeing none, thank you so much for being here today, and thank you for giving us all that great information on our queries of the day.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. Next time, bring puppies.
I'll do my best.
All right, perfect. All right, I see that that's the end of the folks who were signed up to testify. Is there anybody from the gallery who wished to testify in favor of this bill? Seeing none, I don't
apologize, Representative Sylvester.
Yes.
The hand did go down. I see Kate Manahan, but I believe I can bring her back in. She might have spoken already, though, right?
Ms. Manahan, have you already spoken, or did you?
No, she has not. I'm sorry.
I don't remember Kate. If you want to bring Kate in, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll bring her in.
Hello, you can call me Sarah.
Kate, otherwise known as Sarah Manahan, you have the Zoom.
Hi, thank you all for having me, and hello, Tracy Gear, my neighbor and fellow mom. Thank you, Representative Sylvester and members of the Labor and Housing Committee. I'm Kate Manahan, really Kate, and I'm the chair of Defend Our Health's 501c4 board. And I'm asking for your support today to continue the fund for drinking water to be safe in Maine. Thank you to Jessica Fay for sponsoring that. I took a deep dive into the issue of arsenic in Maine's residential wells in 2020 when I produced an audio documentary about this issue. And here's the skinny. We have a lot of granite in our state, and we just have more wells in our state. So this is what's going on. There's some arsenic contamination that goes from organic fertilizers that were used on such things as apple orchards and blueberry farms. So sometimes when you're near those areas, you have more too. It is odorless and colorless, and it does make people sick. And to your question about gardens, I had interviewed Kelsey George about her arsenic poisoning, and I believe she submitted testimony to you, but couldn't be here today. She talked about their garden that had browned edges all along the edges of the leafy greens, and they knew something was wrong with their gardens when they were sick too, but they couldn't figure out what they were sick from. In part because so few doctors even ask where people get their water, or even understand that symptoms such as GI upset, headaches, as well as the cancer family, especially bladder cancer, can be related to the drinking water with arsenic in it. So that's a whole nother thing we could do to change the world, is get the doctors on board here. But the part that makes me the most crazy as a mother and a former teacher and a social worker is that this exposure can cause children to lose 5 to 6 IQ points. And that's for life. Even if you mitigate the water, you can still be 5 or 6 IQ points down. And when you've got 100, you think, well, big deal. It's actually a huge deal. And it can take people out of the normal range of bell curve standardized intelligence quotients and just move you down to a lower group. And that if that happens, if you get put into a, you lose 6 IQ points and go from a 95 to an 89, you may need in-school supports and additional supports throughout your life. And it's preventable. And here we have this wonderful opportunity suggested to us by Representative Fay, which I'm asking you to please use the funds from the recent federal infrastructure bill to restock this program for water testing and remediation. It's a public health strategy that actually will pay huge dividends. Treating water at the tap, even if it's expensive, is still way cheaper than chemotherapy. So not to mention the fact that these are our citizens. These are the people that contribute to the well-being of our state. And if they're sick and unwell or diminished in any way, we have a less grand state. So I urge you to support 1891 for more access to clean drinking water. And thank you all. It was really a joy to be here today and hear the students and all the Sarahs.
Thank you, Ms. Manahan. Are there any questions from the committee for Ms. Manahan? Seeing none, thank you for being here.
Thanks.
I'll just ask once more, is there anyone else out in the gallery who is hoping to testify in favor of LD 1891? Seeing none, I don't see anyone from the pro-arsenic lobby here to testify today. Is there anyone wishing to testify in opposition to LD 1891? Is there anyone willing or wanting to testify neither for nor against? Then I will close the hearing on LD 1891 and look to see. We don't seem to have Representative Harnett yet. He is chairing in Judiciary. Justin, you want to give a call over to Judiciary and see if we can get him here and everybody be at ease for.
We do have him here. I can promote him. Yeah,
okay,
I was doing all that during the last last hearing, so he's here with us now.
Perfect. Excellent. No breaks. Justin, I see Adam Good, but I don't see Representative Harnett yet. Oh, there he is. There's his lovely face. Welcome, Representative. Let me open up your hearing. All right, I would open up the hearing on LD 1889, an act to amend the Whistleblowers Protection Act to ensure coverage in unionized workplaces. And Representative, we just had a whole bevy of very cute students, so hopefully you've also brought cute students to testify on your bill today. How about you have the Zoom?
Sadly, the answer is no to your initial question, but I wish that I had. Thank you, Senator Daughtry, Representative Sylvester, and esteemed members of the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is Tom Harnett, and I represent House District 83, which includes the town of Farmingdale and the city of Gardner, where I reside. I am here today to introduce LD 1889, an act to amend the Whistleblowers Protection Act to ensure coverage in unionized workplaces. I'm introducing this bill today on behalf of the Maine Human Rights Commission, and the Commission Council will address the specifics of the bill and provide you with an explanation of the bill and discuss why it is necessary to advance the Commission's mission. The purpose of this bill is to repeal a section in the Whistleblower Protection Act. In testimony today, you will hear about a recent law court case decision, Nedow versus Twin Rivers Paper Company, LLC, that resulted in unionized employees in Maine losing coverage under the Whistleblowers Protection Act. LD 1889 is intended to address this decision and ensure that all Maine employees, organized or not, are protected when they report unlawful or unsafe working conditions, as has always been intended by the law. Passing this bill further ensures that employees will not lose protected rights in exchange for engaging in legally recognized union activity. Working Mainers should never be placed in a position where they bargain away protections already afforded to all other working people under existing law. Barbara Arsher Hirsch from the Maine Human Rights Commission is here to give you a more detailed explanation of the bill and the reasons why it is necessary. While I'm happy to entertain questions, you might be better off deferring those until after you hear from the Commission Council. I thank you for the opportunity to present this bill for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Harnett. We're going to give Chair Sylvester just a moment to return to the hearing.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I was listening, but had to run to the little chairs room. Perfect. Are there any questions from the committee for Representative Harnett? The indignities of Zoom. I do not see any questions, Representative Harnett. So we thank you for bringing this bill forward and for testifying today, but it looks like you're getting off easy.
Thank you very much. And I apologize, I will be needing to leave shortly, but I will listen to the testimony of the Commission Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Justin, if we could bring in Adam Good and then Andrew Mason and then Jeffrey Young. And we'll also bring in Barbara Hirsch. So basically everybody.
Good morning, Representative Sylvester and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Adam Good. I'm the Legislative and Political Director at the Maine AFL-CIO. We represent 40,000 working men and women in the state of Maine who work to improve their lives and working conditions of our members and of all working people. Whistleblower laws protect workers from retaliation. There is a fundamental power imbalance in the workplace, making it risky for a worker or a group of workers to raise concerns about workplace hazards, violations of workplace safety and health, or disclosing information about dishonest or illegal activities. The Whistleblower Protection Act aims to protect workers from retaliation when raising these types of concerns. In workplaces where there is a collective bargaining agreement, workers have recourse that provides an added level of security that they will not face retaliation when raising these types of concerns. Sometimes unions don't pursue grievances. In a situation like this, a worker might want to pursue rights privately. This bill seeks to ensure that workers under a CBA have whistleblower rights that are in addition to rights that all other workers have. It's for that reason that we support eliminating Section 837 in Title 26 entirely. We ask that you support LD 1889, and if I can help answer any questions, I'll try my best.
Thank you, Mr. Good. Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Good? Seeing none, thank you, sir. And Mr. Mason, you're up, sir.
Good morning, Representative Sylvester and other esteemed members of the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is Andrew Mason, and I am presenting testimony on behalf of the Maine Education Association in support of LD 1889. The MEA represents 24,000 educators in our great state, including thousands of teachers, professors, ed techs, and other essential hourly workers who are all covered by collective bargaining agreements. MEA proudly supports this bill. No one gets it right 100% of the time, the law court included. While other states have language similar to Maine concerning the protection of whistleblowers in the form in which claims can be pursued, none have interpreted that such a claim is preempted by federal law. Let's be clear, when federal law preempts a state law, that means that whatever protections Maine has chosen to afford to unionized employees only exist as determined by federal law. Because the law court ruled that the language of 26 MRS 837 requires a court to interpret the terms of the CBA, this means that state law conflicts with federal law, which prohibits courts from engaging in in-depth interpretations of a CBA. The proposed fix is to align Maine with other states and courts by removing the offending statutory language and allowing unionized employees to pursue whistleblower protection claims through their CBA. Thank you for your time, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. As always, are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Mason? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Mr. Young, welcome. Zoom is yours.
Thank you, Representative Sylvester and esteemed members of the committee. My name is Jeffrey Neal Young. I am a formerly CUTE student, but that was about 60 years ago. Today, I am an attorney with Solidarity Law. My practice includes representation of unions and also handling civil rights claims. I'm here wearing my hat today on behalf of the Maine Employment Lawyers Association, which is a group of about 75 lawyers who handle discrimination and whistleblower claims. Mila joins the Maine AFL, the Maine Education Association, and I gather the commission, which I wasn't aware of until this morning, in supporting the enactment of LD 1889. I won't get into long details. I think Mr. Mason has just given you some, and I think Barbara Archer Hirsch will do so. But the problem here is one of preemption. Other states with similar language to Section 837, and in fact, the Supreme Court have interpreted such language differently and have found that that kind of language does not preempt suits brought by individuals for violation of the whistleblower claims. Unfortunately, I think the law court simply got it wrong here, except for the dissent of Justice Jaybar, who wrote very clearly why these types of claims aren't preempted. In deciding to support this bill, Mila had discussions with union and other civil rights lawyers about how to deal with this preemption problem. We contemplated adding language to Section 837 rather than simply repealing it altogether. But ultimately, our best legal conclusion is that simply adding additional language would still present the same preemption problem. As I think Mr. Good pointed out, our concern is that Unions, while they do a great job of representing their members, at times for various reasons decide not to pursue whistleblower claims, and that, under as things stand right now under NADAO, leaves the union member without any remedy. I don't think 837 was ever enacted meaning to give a union member less rights than those of the non-unionized workforce. So for those reasons, Mila has concluded that we want to support the repeal of Section 837. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Young. Representative Gear has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thanks for being here, Mr. Young, and for helping to explain this bill. I put on my I am not a lawyer hat, and I'm hoping that I can just get you to help me translate this into what it means for real foreign employees. So say I'm a member of a union. I have a whistleblower situation. I bring that to my union and they decide not to help me pursue that claim. Does this bill then guarantee that then I would still be able to go elsewhere to pursue that claim?
What it would mean is that the member could then, assuming that he or she timely had filed a charge with the Human Rights Commission, could still pursue the whistleblower claim independent of the union. There's still, just to be clear, to really get into the weeds here, there still might have to be a construction of the union contract nonetheless because of preemption concerns. But most of the time, let's just take a typical example. My union contract says that I get $20 an hour, and I say that I'm not getting paid my $20 an hour, and I was retaliated against when I went to the employer and asked that I be paid $20 an hour. I mean, I think we could all agree that you might have to reference the union contract in order to determine how I should be paid, but it doesn't really require an interpretation of the collective bargaining agreement. And that's where problems exist right now. Representative Gear, under the NADAO decision, is basically the law court said, since we have to go look at the union contract, the matter is preempted. So this bill would fix that problem, but it doesn't. There may be other instances, to be certain. I hate to confuse the matter, where things could still wind up being preempted. It's not 100% certain, but it would give the union member a shot at pursuing claims under the Whistleblower Protection Act, which right now are clearly going to be found to be preempted. I hope that answered your question and didn't confuse matters further.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Young? Representative Bradstreet.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Young, for being here. I have questionable internet reception right now, so I didn't get everything of that. So I just want to ask something that maybe you've already answered. So if I do, I ask your forgiveness. Is it possible for a union contract within its terms to obviate the need for this law? In other words, or is it standard union contracts would include the provisions in this, the provisions which the court says prevents the individual from pursuing separate action?
Thank you, Representative Bradstreet, and nice to see you. I'll try to answer your question. In theory, a union and an employer could enter into an agreement which would provide that the union members' exclusive remedy is through the collective bargaining agreement, and that would eliminate that member's right to pursue claims under the Whistleblower Protection Act. There's a decision of the Supreme Court that's Hyatt is the name of that decision that held in that fashion. But in my experience, twofold. One, most union contracts don't contain that kind of language. And secondly, I would say that although unions do pursue whistleblower claims, it's far, far more common for union members to pursue those kinds of claims individually rather than through the auspices of the union contract. So this net out decision in effect is almost putting a tax on unions to have to pursue these claims for their members, or else the union member is out of luck entirely. I hope that answered your question, Representative.
It's very helpful to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Young? Jeff, I just had a quick one. I was trying to think, in the dozens and dozens of contracts I've negotiated, I can't remember anything like this ever coming up. It's kind of like, putting in an anti-slavery clause or some other bill. Most people think they're covered under the federal laws. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I think, it's a standard clause in union contracts to say that there won't be any discrimination, another discrimination or retaliation, but not to delegate to the union exclusively. And most of those claims, in my experience, always wind up going to the Human Rights Commission. They don't go through the union contract.
Thank you. It was a great question, though, Representative Bradstreet. It really made me think. Are there any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I believe, lastly, playing cleanup is Barbara Archer Hirsch from the Maine Human Rights Council. Welcome. You are on mute.
Typical, 2.5 years later, I still haven't figured out how to present remotely. Thank you, Representative Sylvester and members of Labor and Housing. I am Barbara Archer Hirsch. I am counsel for the Maine Human Rights Commission, and the commission is a quasi-independent agency. We are charged with enforcing Maine's anti-discrimination laws, mainly the Maine Human Rights Act, but also through the Maine Human Rights Act, the Whistleblower Protection Act. And I would like to give a big thank you to Representative Harnett for bringing this bill forward on our behalf. The Commission strongly believes that Section 837 should be repealed. That section of the Whistleblower Protection Act provides that the Whistleblower Protection Act should not be construed to diminish the rights of any person under a collective bargaining agreement. And person could be the union, could be the employee, could be the employer. And we do not believe that the law court got it right when it said that this section results in preemption of all Whistleblower Protection Act claims by union members. That's not what the section says. That's not what was intended by the Maine legislature. And as you'll see from the 5 pages of testimony I submitted, I could very easily get caught up in explaining to you why I'm right and the law court is wrong on the law. But regardless of who was right and who was wrong, this decision is inappropriate because it forces Maine workers to trade off their human rights in exchange for union rights. And it's not even a real choice. As soon as you join a workforce that is unionized, according to the Netto decision, any Whistleblower Protection Act claim you might make is very likely preempted by federal law. The commission take in a huge number of Whistleblower Protection Act cases every year. Looking at 2020 from our annual report, which is available online, of 775 new cases in fiscal year 2020, 31% or 242 of those contained a Whistleblower Protection Act claim. And those include people who would likely under Netto find their claims preempted specifically, although the Whistleblower Protection Act contains language saying specifically that teachers are covered. Teachers' claims would be prevented because virtually every single school employee who's not management is covered by a collective bargaining agreement. Similarly, mandated reporters, who are almost always, when we see them, teachers or nurses and other medical professionals, also work in unionized workplaces and are specifically covered by the statute, but under Netto would not, would no longer be. Yes.
That is the end of your time, but I bet some kind person will ask you if there was something else you wanted to add. But I see that Representative Drinkwater has a question right now.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But Mr. Chair, I'm not that kind person, so maybe somebody else will be kind.
No one misconstrued you as such, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Attorney Hirsch, thank you very much. Now, my head is just exploding over here to wrap my arms around this issue. So please help me to understand. I, as an employee, have federal protections for whistleblower rights. Is that correct?
The protections we're talking about right now are state level protections. There is not necessarily, I mean, there are federal equivalents to the Whistleblower Protection Act, but what the commission is talking about and what the commission covers are the state level protections.
But doesn't federal law preempt state law?
Federal law can preempt state law. In the human rights field, federal law is considered a floor, not a ceiling. So state law can be broader, but it can't be narrower than, say, Title VII or other federal anti-discrimination laws.
So what I've read, and thank you for your lengthy explanation, by the way, is because Netto wrongly established that employees in unionized workplaces have at best limited protection. So you use plural as employees. So as a collective group, they've signed away their rights to whistle protection?
Not knowingly, and not in my usually humble opinion. What the law court said is that by operation of the language in Section 837, which we're seeking to have repealed, they said that language means that in order to decide whether any whistleblower claim would have the impact of diminishing rights under the main human, under the collective bargaining agreement, you automatically have to interpret the collective bargaining agreement, and federal law, specifically the Labor Management Relations Act, provides for preemption, provides that federal courts have basically exclusive jurisdiction over interpreting collective bargaining agreements so that there's a uniform labor law. So these employees have not knowingly signed away their rights, but in effect, by working in a unionized workplace, their claims are, according to the law court, preempted, which we don't think is an outcome that is supported by the language or that should be the outcome for Maine workers.
Last question. So would the remedy be that the union should draw up new collective bargaining agreements that would take care of the Netto decision?
I don't think that given the language of Netto, the union can take care of it. I think that only amending the statute will take care of it. Because again, if the unions create and the employees enter into new contracts, if that language is still there, the commission and courts would not be permitted to look at the issue because they would have to interpret a collective bargaining agreement.
Thank you very much. My head's still exploding, but thank you.
Sorry, that's sort of an issue.
Representative Rader.
I'm the kind person who's going to ask if you had anything else that you'd like to add.
Thank you, kind representative. I'm actually fine. Questions are useful because they perhaps will make me less likely to concentrate on esoteric legal issues that intrigue me and literally no one else.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Archer Hirsch? I have a quick one. A lot of times in contract, to just sort of follow up on Representative Drinkwater's question, a lot of times in contracts, the go to arbitration and then, but a court will tell a union member you have to go, if it's covered in the contract, you have to go through your collective bargaining process first, and then you can sometimes seek remediation in a higher court. But the federal court, when deciding whether or not to take a case, will look at things like state laws to see whether or not there's another venue for it. Am I correct in my sort of simple summation of that?
You are correct generally, for sure. Again, the Labor Management Relations Act is
Yes, I know.
its own special subset, as you well know.
It's a lot of fun.
But
I
yes,
think
you are
if I can be
correct.
generally correct, that is as close as I'm likely to get in my lifetime. So thank you so much for that.
I would also like to mention that while I don't have cute students, I do have a Ruth Bader Ginsburg finger puppet. So that is what I have to offer.
We appreciate it. Any amusement that we can get, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for your testimony today. Justin,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the gallery to testify who wish to testify on LD 1889?
No
Anyone
hands
wishes
raised.
to testify? I don't see anybody to testify against, Justin, or neither for nor against. Is that correct?
You are correct.
And I don't see anybody from the attendees raising their paws, so I will close the hearing on LD 1889, an act to amend the Whistleblower Protection Act to ensure coverage in unionized workplaces, and open the hearing on LD 1901, an act to protect funding for healthcare for retired teachers by establishing an investment trust fund. Justin, if you could bring in Representative Dodge, that would be fantastic. There you are. Welcome, Representative Dodge. As always, great to see you.
Good morning, Chair Sylvester. Great to see you and your committee this morning.
The Zoom is yours, Representative, whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Chair Daughtry, Chair Sylvester, and esteemed members of the Committee on Labor and Housing. I am Representative Jan Dodge of Belfast, and I am here to present LD 1901, Resolve to Protect Funding for the State Employee Healthcare Program. This bill was submitted to correct an omission that occurred. The direction to create an irrevocable trust exists in statute to be accomplished by July 1st, 2011. This never happened. The language in statute requiring the creation of an irrevocable trust for retired teacher health benefits can be found in Title V, 286B. We have brought this issue to our state treasurer, Henry Beck, and his office has now spent many months trying to untangle why such a trust was never created and whether current law provides enough clarity to create such a trust. The treasurer and his staff have been extremely helpful throughout this process, and we appreciate their efforts. Treasurer Beck believes he has the authority to move forward, and discussions with multiple parties, MEPERS, Maine Education Association, have not revealed any opposition. If trust creation comes to fruition, there is no need for this bill. I believe Treasurer Beck will testify today. Though this appears to be moving on a positive trajectory, and while currently there appear to be no impediments to doing what current law requires, I respectfully request that the bill not be voted ought not to pass until creation of the trust has cleared all hurdles. Thank you. And I would ask that your technical questions please be directed to Treasurer Beck. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions for Representative Dodge from the committee? Seeing Representative Prescott.
Well, thank you. Hi. So how is this bill going to eliminate the hurdles? If it can be done already by Mr. Beck, I'm not seeing why we need to do this at all.
You are correct. When one has faith that the laws will be followed and adhered to, one would expect that this would have happened in 2011. However, it did not. So does that answer your question, or you're asking specifically about perhaps what should be directed to Treasurer Beck if he has indeed found that there are enough indications in statute that this should have happened, that he will go forward?
Can I follow?
Yes, of course, Representative Prescott.
Well, my point is, so we changed the law. That doesn't mean it's still going to happen anyhow. If it can happen, then, and it didn't happen, then that's really out of our scope. I don't see how altering this law is going to make something happen that can already happen, but it hasn't. So I guess I'll wait and speak with Mr. Beck about it. Let's see what he has to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and my old seatmate, Representative Dodge. But since how Representative Prescott opened the door, I had to step through. Can you enlighten me on how you found out that this was never enacted back in 2011? I'm curious if you, there's a lot of work involved, obviously, but I'd like to have a little history on that.
Yes. Well, in looking through some of the laws around our health insurance coverage for our retired teachers, you know that we have been working to try to save money in any way that we can. And when it was discovered that this trust had not been created, we realized that there could be some savings that could happen because of an increased rating, because these monies were set aside in an irrevocable trust to grow and offset the unfunded liability, insurance coverage. Actually, someone from the Maine Education Association can probably better address those details. But because I am a stalwart advocate for trying to level the playing field for our retired educators, I thought that this would be a wise thing to pursue. And further, when one discovers, just as Representative Prescott has alluded to, sorry, that's terrible grammatical construction. When you discover that laws aren't being followed, the reaction is one of disappointment. And so I'm trying to correct that. And you know, I'm trying to help retirees. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Drinkwater. It's nice to see you.
Are there any other questions for Representative Dodge? Seeing none, thank you for bringing this bill forward, Representative. Thank you for your testimony today, and we hear your request in terms of timing. I can only offer you 3 months or so, so we'll do what we can.
Thank you so very much. Have a great
All right.
day, everyone, and thank you so much for the work of you and your committee.
Thank you, Representative Dodge. Next, we're going to cut to the chase and bring in Secretary Beck. Welcome.
Thank you, Representative Sylvester and members of the committee. I'm State Treasurer Henry Beck here to testify in support of LD 1901. Make a similar request of the committee that you heard from Representative Dodge. And I'll sort of get to the point, as you suggested, Representative Sylvester. We believe the law currently already grants authority to create an investment trust for funds for health insurance for retired teachers. And I've already begun that process. Representative Prescott's question, that's one I think we've all been sort of asking ourselves for a long time. I can't really speak to the delays between 2011 and 2019. I could talk a little bit about what's happened since then. The question of why does Representative Dodge have this bill before you at all? What's different about it? Without sort of conducting an entire analysis between what's on the books now and her proposal. Her proposal is a bit more specific, a bit more precise, a bit more intentional about establishing a teacher trust. And there's a difference in her bill and the current law about who would serve as an external trustee. If it's helpful, and by the way, I've submitted a written testimony so you can sort of mull this over. Committee is fully aware, I don't want to waste your time, but in 2007 and then 2011, the legislature saw fit to establish these trusts, an external trust and then investment trusts for groups of retired public employees, a way to protect their funds for health insurance premiums and also grow the funds in the market. There was a twofold purpose: protect the funds. We have this idea of putting this in a trust really protects it. These are only statutory obligations, but putting that money in a trust, I think, protects the promise of assistance in retirement for health insurance, and also putting the money to work in the market. Depending on different government accounting standards and different definitions, this is a liability on the books for the state to pay, future costs for health insurance. And so by putting funds in a trust, you can grow the trust. You don't have to rely just on appropriations. We believe, and we've taken a lot of time meeting with the Attorney General's office, meeting with Maine PERS, really literally asking people that were around the table in say 2007, 2011, we believe we can make a trust now for teachers. And we've already taken some of those steps. For the first time ever, if you look at the current law, the treasurer is allowed, after some solicitation with others, namely with Maine School Management, the controller, and the MEA, we finally have named an external trustee. I've met with Maine PERS. This is really one of the most essential questions. I think it might be a footnote. I think remember to include it in my testimony. The real question for everybody was whether Title V, Section 17432, allows Maine PERS to be the investment trustee, and there is consensus. I don't want to speak for anyone but myself, but there's essentially consensus that can happen. So we've named a trustee. I've met with folks from state HR to talk about the logistics of getting the money over to Maine PERS. So the teacher funds are invested, as has been done with the state employee funds. And it's just a matter of making those things happen in a timely way. Do ask that you, table or otherwise pause this bill in case, we do decide, oh my gosh, there is something little very specific we just have to fix. But so far, since I've been examining this and meeting with stakeholders, do believe we can establish this trust. And I think, as is basically the universal intention, protect the funds and also put the money to work, grow the funds. We don't have to rely just on appropriations. We did that with state employee funds. I included my testimony.
Secretary Beck?
Yes.
We're over by about a minute on your time, but I'm going to ask you if there's anything you would like to continue discussing.
No, I'm good with that, Representative. It's all on my written testimony and happy to answer questions.
Then I have a quick one, which I think probably is on everyone's mind. What does the timetable look like for actually establishing this? And what is 3 months? I mean, I understand that there might be some technical change, but does that give you a time to finish the research that you have to do to feel like you're moving it forward?
I believe it would. My goal, without a doubt, my goal is to have it done in a satisfactory way before you adjourn. So it's really maybe a few weeks before then, in case the committee has to take this up.
Perfect. Thank you. Representative Drinkwater has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I heard you say we can establish this. Well, what I read was we've already established it back in 2011. So if we've already established it, why do we need to establish it again? And what assurance do we have that it won't fall through the cracks again?
So in 2011, the law, or at least 2011 or perhaps 2007, you said, okay, establish some trusts. That was certainly done for state employee funds. For some reason, between at least, which I can't fully explain, between 2011 and 2019 wasn't done for teachers. I think it's worth sharing. I mean, I think part of it had to do with appropriations at that time. Sometimes there wasn't sufficient money beyond the programming cost itself to establish a trust. Sometimes there was disagreement about what the legal terms meant. Sometimes government accounting standards were changing. But the law allows establishment of a trust, and I guess you have my assurance here. And to demonstrate that, we've already taken steps by naming a trustee, meeting with state HR, meeting with Maine PERS for the teacher funds.
Thank you.
Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Treasurer Beck, for being here. So even if this bill were not to pass, do you feel comfortable funding the trust?
Yes, and of course, that's the fundamental question, and that's information and steps that I will have to rely on state HR and others to determine how much do you need for your ongoing costs, and how much is left over to send over to Maine PERS. As I said, I do think that's been part of the delay. It hasn't been like a blanket ignoring of the law or something forgotten. I think there have been some realities about funding over the years, but we are not in that position now, we don't believe.
Okay, good, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Secretary Beck? Seeing none, thank you for being here, sir. Thank you for your lengthy testimony. We'll make sure to examine it for the work session.
Thank you.
We have a couple of, or at least one person from the public to testify. Maybe, yes. So I'm going to bring forward Victoria Wallach, and then we'll hear from Kathy Moore and from me, PERS, and then Mr. Kaczynski. Ms. Wallach, you want to turn on your camera and your microphone? And you are from Maine School Management. I'm just seeing, but we're happy to bring you forward for it. I wasn't. I
Hi.
Had a glitch. Go ahead. You have the floor.
Yes, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Labor and Housing Committee. I am Victoria Wallach, Director of Communications and Government Relations for Maine School Management, testifying on behalf of the Maine School Boards Association and Maine School Superintendents Association. Our associations support the intent of this bill and have supported legislation over the years to protect the state share of retiree teacher health insurance. This is an essential benefit for our teachers and administrators, and certainly affects the retirement plans of our teachers. The bill would protect their health insurance through an irrevocable trust fund and provide assurance the money will be there for those anticipating retirement. They need and deserve to know their health care plans are covered. We appreciate the comments of Treasurer Beck, and a member of our staff here is also involved in those discussions. So, but we still support the bill and would like to see an official adoption of it, and understand that that work is ongoing and we'll stay involved. And I'd be happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Ms. Wallach. Is there any questions from the committee for Ms. Wallach? Seeing none, thank you. And then we'll bring forward Kathy Moran from MEPERS. Just
Good morning, Representative Sylvester and members of the committee. My name is Kathy Moran. I'm the Manager of Actuarial and Legislative Affairs for the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. MainePERS is neither for nor against LD 1901. We're here to provide information and offer any assistance to the committee on this bill. This bill establishes the Retired Teacher Health Insurance Post-Employment Benefits and Benefits Investment Trust Fund and names the MainePERS Board of Trustees as the trustees of this investment fund. The trustees' duties include determining the appropriate investment policy and managing the assets of this fund. The MainePERS Board of Trustees currently serves as trustees for the Post-Employment Benefits Investment Trust Fund for retired state employees, which has been discussed, and we have served that role since the inception of the fund in 2007. MainePERS has no concerns for serving this role for Retired Teacher Trust Fund as proposed in LD 1901. Thank you for your consideration of this testimony. I'm happy to answer any questions and will be available at your work session.
And for the committee, I brought Ms. Moran up first. I missed Mr. Kaczynski, so we'll come back to Mr. Kaczynski, but Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Moran. This trust fund was established back in 2011, but obviously it wasn't funded. Am I reading this correctly and that money was not put into that trust fund? And if I am reading it correctly, does MainePERS have any idea how much money should have been sitting in that account after 11 years?
So the trust fund was not actually established. We don't hold a trust fund for that. I'm sure John Kaczynski probably should have gone before me because he has way more details and understanding of this than I do. But the trust fund itself was not established. And so in terms of what we're looking at doing is to actually set that trust fund up for retired teachers at this point and to provide the funding for it. So I don't have a sense as to the dollars that you're asking about in terms of what should be in that fund, but again, others may have that information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Moran from the committee? Seeing none, Ms. Moran, I'll just let you know when we get to my bill on your behalf. I'm not going to be calling you right up, so just so you're prepped for that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And last, but certainly not least, and with whom we also hope has brought a coddle of cute children to testify alongside him. We clearly he has access to them. We bring you Mr. John Kaczynski from the Maine Education Association. Mr. Kaczynski, welcome to the committee.
Thank you. I've never had such a wonderful introduction before a committee before. So thank you, Representative Sylvester, Senator Daughtry, if she's here, other esteemed members of the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is John Kaczynski here on behalf of the Maine Education Association to testify kind of in support of LD 901, much like you've heard from others today, Representative Dodge and Treasurer Beck. It appears the bill might not be needed. And I just want to be clear, I think the request from all of us is just to hold the bill in case there is an issue. Because we are looking at a section of law that is over 10 years old now. And I agree with Treasurer Beck, the transition from former Governor LePage and the former Governor Baldacci, this clearly got lost during some of that transition. We believe current law, and I put this in my testimony, Title V, Section 286B, provides all the parameters necessary for the establishment of the Retiree Healthcare Trust for Teachers. I must give a major thank you and appreciation to Treasurer Beck. We brought this to his attention a few months ago. His office has been working diligently and sprang into action. There was a lot to untangle here with the history of this legislation and regarding the Government Accounting Standards Board, GASB changes that were made there and changes that were made to put the parameters for the trust in place in 2011. You heard from others about why this is important. I just want to flag, there's a couple other issues that I think maybe were touched on that I just want to reiterate. By placing the unspent budgeted funds into the trust, we can expect the unfunded liability of the plan will decrease when actuaries analyze the plan again. And once more, once placed in a trust, the funds can be better invested, thus hopefully producing more investment earnings for the trust, which is what you heard Treasurer Beck say. And I heard Representative Drinkwater ask a question, which I'll respond to now. The state regularly appropriates money for the retired teacher healthcare program. Some of that they appropriate is set aside to cover the unfunded liability for this program. Frankly, I question whether or not there is an unfunded liability for this program, but that's a conversation perhaps for a different day. So they set some money aside just to cover that unfunded liability. In addition, the unspent money also is to accrue in this fund, and that has been occurring. We track at least $35 million that has been put into this fund. It should be and could be more. We haven't gone back all the way through to 2011. But so, for example, thank you, Representative Sylvester. I believe it was, don't hold me to these numbers exactly, I can verify them, but I believe last year the state budgeted $45 million for the retired teacher healthcare program. 10 of that was dedicated to the unfunded liability. The overall cost of the plan was about $31 million. That additional $4 million should have also been sent to accrue in the account, but it's not in a trust, and it's not maximizing investment earnings. That's why we support LD 1901. Mr. Treasurer has done an awesome job of helping to move this forward. I think the request is simply, if he sees any impediments or obstacles trying to get this trust established as it was written in 2011, given that we're looking at a section of statute that is 11 years old, we thought this bill could be an avenue to fix any problems that he sees. But so far, so good on that front. So thanks to
Thank
the
you, Mr. Kaczynski. That is the end of your time. Is there any questions for Mr. Kaczynski?
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kaczynski. Good to see you. Could you explain to the committee when you talk about 10 million in unfunded liability? What is that?
So, as I understand it, under the Government Accounting Standards Board, because the state is providing this post-employment benefit to teachers, that they have to account on their spreadsheet that is a liability for the state going forward, that there is an ongoing expectation that the state is going to provide that benefit to retired educators. And it's important to note, this is retired teachers. That's how we call it longhand. There's also Ed Tech 3s and Ed Tech 2s who participate in this as well. So the Government Accounting Standards Board requires the reporting of that unfunded liability. The reason I question that a little bit, sir, frankly, is because every 2 years in the biennial budget, you all determine how much you're going to spend on retired teacher health care. So like last year, there was a discussion about this, and you all moved that to 55%. That was a decision that you all made. And whether or not we know in Maine, one legislature can't necessarily bind the next one. So when you all come back in future years, whether or not you pay 55%, which we hope, of the program, maybe 65%, we would love that too, for retired teachers, that's a decision that you all make. But still, under the Government Accounting Standards Board requirements, we're still required to report that as an unfunded liability. The benefit here is if you put this in a trust, it starts earning investment earnings. That's going to help the plan as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Kaczynski? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Justin, is there anyone else to testify on this bill, or if there's anyone in the gallery who wishes to testify on this bill, LD 1901, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I would close the public hearing on LD 1901 and open the public hearing on LD 1922. And this is a department bill on behalf of the MEPers that I put in. It's an incredibly dense bill, which I had nothing to do with writing. And so Unless there is objection from the committee, I am going to waive my unlimited time to MEPers to just jump right in and explain this bill section by section and make a personal request that Ms. Moran points out to us. If you're looking at the summary might be the best way to sort of follow through what this bill does. Point 8 regarding the disability program and the and notification to the legislature was something that, having read through it several times, I wasn't able to find that piece. So if Ms. Moran could make sure that we see that, because I'm sure the committee will be interested in it, I will otherwise bring Ms. Moran forward with my unlimited time as the sponsor. Thank you, Ms. Moran.
I have to apologize. I was getting brought in while you were making your request about the disability section. So could you just repeat that so that I can make sure I know specifically what that request is?
So if you look at the summary, point 8 is regards that there's a change in the notification to the legislature about the disability program. Right. I read the bill 4 times and wasn't able to find that section. So I just wanted to make sure I knew where it was, since it was my bill. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll go through my testimony. It is a very dense bill, and I did have a hand in writing it. So I can appreciate that it looks much more complicated than it really is. Representative Sylvester, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing, my name is Kathy Moran. I'm the Manager of Actuarial and Legislative Affairs for the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. I'm here to testify in support of LD 1922. And I'd like to first thank Representative Sylvester for sponsoring this bill on behalf of the system. The primary purpose of LD 1922 is to clarify, update, and make minor improvements in the statutes governing Maine PERS. Some of the proposed changes are more technical in nature, while others are more substantive. The technical changes include correcting cross-references and removing or correcting obsolete, unclear, or inconsistent statutory language. The more substantive changes include minor changes to several parts of statute, and I will speak directly to those changes. So here we go on the sections, and the sections I'm referring to are the sections of the bill. If you would just let me go through in that way, and then if we need to go back to the summary and kind of cross-match a little bit, if I haven't covered everything, then I'll be happy to do that. So sections 8, 9, 28, and 29 of the bill propose to clarify that the retirement system and the board have jurisdiction over administrative decisions regarding membership eligibility based on employee membership elections as reported by the employer. This clarification is necessary to ensure that membership decisions comply with federal laws and regulations that apply to governmental qualified defined benefit plans. Section 10 incorporates a recent change in title from Executive Director to Chief Executive Officer, and Section 40 requires that all relevant statutes incorporate that change. Sections 11 and 12 of the bill update the information about disability retirement applications the system is required to include in its annual report to the legislature. The existing provisions refer to a process that was changed through rulemaking in 2010, and the proposed change corresponds to the current process. Section 13 clarifies the types of retirement plans that the Board of Trustees may establish and offer. In addition to the defined benefit plans that it administers, Maine PERS provides a 401A, 457, and 403B plans through its Maine Start program. Currently, those plans are available only to employees of participating local districts that elect to participate in those plans. The proposed change would permit other Maine PERS covered employers to also allow their employees to participate in defined contribution, deferred compensation, and tax sheltered annuity plans offered by Maine PERS. Sections 15 and 31 align the level of automatic refunds that the system can issue to certain terminated non-vested members with federal law. Section 27 removes the option to re-enter the plan for retired participating local district employees who return to work. This change is necessary to align the plan with federal law. Section 39 permits the Chief Executive Officer to adopt a remote meeting policy on behalf of the participating local district advisory committee. And that's the committee that has some oversight responsibility for the participating local district consolidated plan that we've talked about on other bills. Under Public Law 2021, Chapter 290, remote meetings can be held only after the adoption of a remote meeting policy. The proposed language would permit the advisory committee to meet using remote methods without first having to have an in-person meeting to adopt a policy. As previously indicated, other sections of the proposed bill not specifically mentioned in this testimony make non-substantive changes to retirement laws. Thank you for your consideration of the testimony, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions and to do some of that cross mapping that you've talked about if that would be further helpful to you.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. Are there any questions from the committee for Ms. Moran on this bill? Representative Pebworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Moran, for being here. One question is this type of bill typical? Well, when did we most recently have something of this nature correcting things?
Right. So MainePERS typically submits this type of bill every 2 years. And it usually results from as we administer the laws, sometimes we find things like the cross references and the typos and the language is obsolete. We also, of course, pay attention to other laws that are being enacted that cross over into our laws. For example, there's one of the provisions has to do with judicial retirement and return to work. And back in 2017, the judicial law changed on that point, but it didn't pick up the change in the retirement law. So oftentimes we run across, as we're administering the plan, we run across items like that. Other aspects of the bill have to do with federal compliance issues. So we're constantly monitoring and being made aware of what federal laws are and how we need to keep our plan in compliance. So as we administer our plan, again, if we find areas where our plan needs to be modified in order to make sure it stays in compliance with federal law, then we include those types of things in the bill. So that's a long answer to you. How often do we do this? It is about every 2 years that we will do this if we find sufficient changes that we think that we should bring forward and that are worth our time in terms of administering the plan, and your time in terms of the oversight of time that it takes to process these bills.
Thank you. A follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chair.
You may, Representative Pebworth, and I'll just tell you that I do generally the chairs sponsor these things, and the next bill coming up is Department of Labor's go at it, and it tends to happen in the short session after they go through all the bills that we enact in the long session.
Thank you. That's helpful. You mentioned Section 27 and removing option to re-enter. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more for me, please?
Sure. Let me just get there to make sure that we're talking about the same thing here. Right. So this provision, it's hard when you look at these bills to know what's really being repealed, right? Unless you go back and look at the law as it currently stands, and I think that's a challenge that that we face, especially when we do a 12-page bill, and it's hard to expect people to go in and look at all of that. So Title V, Section 18252. Addresses return to work, or subsection 6 that we're referring to here, addresses return to work for a very small population now of our participating local district employers. This provision, as it is now, I mentioned the consolidated plan, which has about just over 300 of our PLDs are in that plan, and their return to work provisions are governed under the consolidated plan, which is actually a board rule. That's the plan document for that. So the PLDs that are left behind are those who didn't go into the plan. What the current law does, it allows retirees from that plan who go back to work to make a choice. So they can either continue to receive their retirement benefit and receive their salary, or they can terminate their retirement benefit, come back into the plan, and accrue more service credit and later retire again. That kind of choice is not permitted under federal law. And so what we're suggesting is that the language be repealed so that that choice no longer be available. I would stress that the applicability of this is very narrow. There are only, I believe, 6 remaining PLDs that are not in the consolidated plan, and many of those don't have retirees. So it's a very small population that could be impacted by this potential change. But again, it's something that we believe is necessary in order to make sure the plan stays in compliance with federal law. Does that answer your question?
It does indeed, and I have great respect for you, and after that explanation and this bill, even more so. Thanks for being here and explaining.
Thank you.
Representative Geer. Representative Gear has spared you her question. I am thankful for you pointing out the section of where point 8 came in. I would have read that many times before I realized that was that piece, because it is a clippings of different parts of statutes. And when we get to for the work session, can we have what the policy is now? You referred to that this is updating us to the policy as it currently stands. So if we could just have a copy of the policy for the committee's records so they know that going forward.
I will absolutely provide that. And just to clarify, that's a board rule, it's a regulation, but we will certainly bring that forward to you.
Yeah, it's just something that when I went and looked to see if I had a copy of it anywhere, I didn't. So I just thought who knows, maybe I'll be run over by a bus tomorrow. It's good the committee has it, and Mr. Langland has it in his hot little hands.
Happy to bring it forward.
Appreciate you.
Thank you again.
All right. Thank you. And let me flip back to see if there's. All right. If we could bring in Justin, Mr. Lobenstein, Mr. Bailey. And Mr. Lobenstein, I see you coming through. You have the floor first.
Thank you, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Committee on Housing and Labor. My name is William Lobenstein, and I am the president of the Maine Association of Retirees. We're here today neither for nor against LD 1922. What we have submitted in our pre-filed testimony is a request that the committee consider an amendment to 1922 that would add a new member to the Board of Trustees of the Maine Public Employees Retirement System, and that new member will be appointed by my organization, the Association of Retirees. This is frequently a question that comes up before the Board of Directors of MAR as to why you are not represented directly on the Board of Trustees. Obviously, even though we are retirees are extremely interested in the work of the Board of Trustees, we don't really have a voice. We recognize that currently the statute does provide for a retiree to be appointed from a list of nominees submitted to the governor by retired state employees and retired employees of the participating local districts. And in preparing my testimony today, even though our pre-filed testimony says we should add a member, but in preparing for today's hearing, I thought maybe an easier way to do this would be to amend the current statute in section 17102, that the retiree representative on the board be one appointed by my organization. This would be consistent with the rest of the way the Board of Trustees is composed. For example, teachers are appointed by the Maine Education Association. The state employees are appointed by the Maine State Employees Association. And interestingly enough, retired teachers are represented by the Maine Retired Teachers Association. We think the next step is to have retired employees, retired state employees, and retired employees from the participating local districts appointed by our association because of the very people we represent. We think this would bring a focus of attention to the right place. As you know from our previous hearings, that we occasionally do come to you and in support of bills that are presented. We also, over the last year, have been attending all meetings of the Board of Trustees so that we can keep up to date on what they're doing. And strangely enough, even the statute setting up the Board of Trustees includes one of their duties to inform people if there are changes in the law or policies that are going to directly affect retirees. We think this is an easy fix so that these employees who are not represented specifically by an entity, could be represented by us. And say we have about 13,000 members, and we send out quarterly newsletters, and we have a way to contact people. We have regional meetings each year at all the 5 regions across the state to keep people informed of what Maine PERS is doing and what the Board of Trustees are working on. Obviously,
Mr. Lobenstein, that is the end of your time. It's possible that there might be some questions for you. Are there any questions? Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for testifying. Can you enlighten for us why, in your opinion, there's not a retiree on the board?
Well, as I indicated, Karen says there is a retiree on the board, but it's selected, if I may, looking at the statute, from a list of nominees submitted by retired state employees, retired participating local districts, or a committee comprised thereof. It's a rather odd process when you look at how the other representatives of employees and retired or on the board.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll certainly take your suggestion in consideration in the work session.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to testify neither for nor against? I don't see Mr. Bailey. Let me just double check here. He must have had to go to another committee. And so we have one person to testify against. Justin, if you could bring forward Susan Hawes.
Mr. Chair, while we're waiting, I see Victoria Wallach has her hand raised.
I'm not seeing that. Justin, could you check with Ms. Wallach and see if she wanted to testify on this bill? And while we're doing that, Ms. Hawes, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good day to Representative Sylvester and to the rest of the distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Sue Hawes. I'm the family caregiver for a Maine PERS disabled retiree. I'm here in opposition to LD 1922, and I'm concerned about the haphazard regulatory agenda presented by Maine PERS to the committee this session, as well as substantial statutory changes mixed in among 1- and 2-word edits within this system bill, LD 1922. I respectfully request that the committee reject the bill by voting ought not to pass for the reasons I explained in detail, but don't have time to explain during my spoken testimony on most of the proposed 83 changes. There's nothing urgent in this bill as far as I can see. I pray the committee will dedicate its limited time this session to the once every 8 years Maine PERS government program evaluation. And in particular, and as I testified at the recent agency briefing, by the committee examining the operations of the Maine PERS disability and appeals programs. The committee's report on the Maine PERS program evaluation is due March 15th. As I explained in my written testimony, Maine PERS system bill creates busy work and waste state resources, among other concerns. I will send the analyst my spreadsheet of the changes in case it is helpful to the committee in analyzing this bill. LD 1922 requests 83 changes to statutes, and although there are substantial changes mixed in, a majority just change a word or phrase. Do these changes reflect the intent of the committee? For example, Maine PERS proposes doing away with notarization. In LD 1922, Maine PERS requests 14 locations in the statutes, removing the need for members to notarize statements. No longer duly notarized, but only acknowledged. Why is this change being proposed? In LD 1922, Maine PERS proposes deleting reporting requirements in its annual report to the legislature specific to the disability program, and Maine PERS does not address the significant issues of the Maine PERS disability and appeals programs. On May 10th, 2021, Maine PERS General Counsel stated at the hearing on LD 1644, it was clear from the moving testimony the committee heard last year that changes were needed to the Maine PERS Disability Retirement Program. Many of you remember the January 2020 public hearing on LD 1978 being filled to the brim with Maine public employees and their family members, including myself, sharing our troubling experiences at MPERS. I want to finish by reminding the committee of Senator Miramont's testimony that day in January 2020 regarding the systemic issues at Maine PERS. When he introduced LD 1978, Senator Miramont testified, and I quote in part, "In 2018, I received an email from a constituent about her experience with Maine PERS disability program. As I read her email, it seemed that something was terribly wrong. Speaking with my colleagues, I learned that they too had constituents whose applications had been surprisingly denied for no clear reason. The problems at Maine PERS disability retirement program are systemic and deeply troubling," he said. So my colleagues and I met with Maine PERS Executive Director Sandy Matheson. We asked her how the system could be so broken and why she and her staff had done nothing to fix it. Shockingly, Director Matheson informed us that fixing problems wasn't Maine PERS' job. They just administer the program. Senator Miramont continued.
And Ms. Haas, I hate to do this, but we are a minute over at this point. So if you could conclude, that would be great.
I continue to pray the committee will focus its limited time this session to the once every 8 years Maine PERS government evaluation. In particular, reviewing Maine PERS operations of the Disability and Appeals Program by requiring Maine PERS to disclose its disability program procedures and provide a more robust annual report to the legislature. I made related proposals in my testimony to the committee January 12th at the agency briefing on the report. In closing, I again urge the committee to vote this system bill out of committee, ought not to pass. There is no urgency to any part of LD 1922 when compared to the March 15th deadline of the MPERS Government Program Evaluation Report due from the committee. Thank you for your time. As always, I'm happy to answer any questions now or at the work session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haas. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Justin, is there anyone else set to testify?
Mr. Bailey was in the waiting room and we were trying to get him in, but it did not work out yet. I sent him an email. So I'm not sure if he'll join us, but we do have written testimony from him as well.
We do have his written testimony. So if everyone would make sure to look at it, and if we have any distinct questions, we can get it to him before the work session. And so with that, I will close LD 1922 and open the public hearing on LD 1925. Resolve regarding legislative review of portions of Chapter 9 rules governing administrative civil money penalties for labor law violations, a major substantive rule of the Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Standards. And although I am the sponsor of this, it doesn't say that anywhere on this. And so what I'm going to do again, Mr. Rowland is here to speak on behalf of the department. So if there's no, and again, another nice chunky bill. So if we, I'm going to waive my time and allow Mr. Rowland to walk us through the bill with my unlimited time. Justin, if you could bring Mr. Rowland in.
Hi, am I here?
Welcome, Director Rowland.
Thank you.
The Zoom is yours if you'd like to walk us through this bill.
Yeah, sorry it took so long. Thank you, Representative Sylvester and the Joint Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Mike Rowland. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the department in support of LD 1925 And I want to thank Representative Sylvester for introducing this resolve on behalf of the department. The Bureau of Labor Standards proposed amendments to Chapter 9 rules to clarify and update the calculation of penalties and the process for appeals of citations resulting from violations of 26 MRS Chapter 7. The method for calculating penalties assessed for wage and hour violations is made in these rules more transparent and predictable, we hope. Specifically, the rules add definitions, rationalize existing calculations, and codify existing practices regarding the application of multipliers for repeated and willful violations, and combining or grouping violations. In addition, the proposed rules update and elucidate the appeals process for citations and penalties. They describe in greater detail the conduct of appeal hearings, including the role of the hearing officer in conducting the hearing and issuing a recommended decision, and the role of bureau directors in issuing a final decision, and the option of a review by a superior court. The proposed rules also clarify the respective roles of the division director and the bureau director and seek to expedite the entire process by permitting communication through more modern means, such as email. In essence, the proposed rule attempts to clarify the Bureau's process and practice regarding the assessment of administrative civil money penalties for labor law violations. This rule has no additional impact on small business, and we believe it will benefit Maine employers and employees by improving the predictability for the regulated community. And thank you for your time and attention. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have now or at a future work session.
Thank you. Representative Drinkwater has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Rowland, perhaps you won't know the answer to this, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. One of the big things on these violations is that, and I know some shady automobile dealers, believe it or not. I know you find that hard to believe. They quickly run to bankruptcy and try to get out. Because I noticed on one of your reports that you had one for $40-some thousand for wage violations. Is there anything we can do to prevent the bankruptcy court from excusing those fines and wage and penalties?
To prevent the bankruptcy court from excusing, your first assumption is correct. I don't know the answer to that. I can try to find out. I'll try to get you an answer for a work session.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to make sure I understand. So the question is about a specific case or in general about?
In general. In general, I personally don't believe that they should run to bankruptcy court and all of a sudden have all those fines dismissed. I think they should have to face the music.
Okay, I understand. I understand now. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for Director Rowland? Well, that might mean that you're off the hook. Unfortunately, I am the chair is now going to ask a couple questions. So mainly what I wanted to make sure that the committee understood, we've gone through this process in other bills where we've looked at changing some piece of it, of what the process is from your office when you receive a complaint. But I think it'd be very helpful, since we're looking at making the substantive change, to just sort of walk through the process of call, investigation, pre-hearing, trial, and that piece, and any changes that sort of come in this rulemaking that changes where it was to where it is now. And I appreciate your commenting me on that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the process, which I'll go through, is of receiving complaints or otherwise discovering violations, and then going through the process of citation investigation, citation is really prior to the rules that we've offered to change here. The rules address what happens once we've determined that there's a violation, and our division director, wage and hour division director, is calculating how to assess the penalties, what penalties to assess, and on what basis to calculate the amounts of the penalties. So ordinarily what happens, has happened most recently, is that we'll receive a complaint, usually a phone call or an email from a worker asking if their rights have been violated, if there's any protection under our statutes about what's happened to them at work. And we'll have a conversation with that worker and try to get as much information as possible and determine if there's a statute that covers their situation. And then if so, we'll ask them to file a formal written complaint, very specifying the details of the occurrence. And after that, we'll conduct an investigation. We often ask the employer for their wage records, their time sheets, those types of things, to determine exactly whether there's a violation and what violations there might be. At that point, often we'll have a conversation with the employer, give them an opportunity to make good on the back wages owed. If there's a penalty, and we'll determine with them whether they might be subject to a penalty for the violations that we've discovered. At that point, if there's no compliance reaction by the employer, we'll ordinarily cite that employer for the violations. And at that point, go into the process of identifying the violations, enumerating the violations, and oftentimes, if there are a number of employees and this has happened over a period of time, there can be quite a large number of violations for each case. And then we'll apply the rules that we've just proposed rewriting to determine the severity of the penalty and whether there are repeat violations, whether they, for instance, apply to a statute that protects minors at the workplace, in which case we'll often increase the penalty because we consider that a very serious violation, and the severity is higher than normal. Or if there's a safety issue involved, transportation of workers is one in particular. And so after making those calculations, we'll write that into the penalty in the citation. The employer then has the right to appeal, of course. And the second part of these rules applies really to the process by which we hear appeals, which had been a cumbersome process, and I think is necessarily a somewhat cumbersome process because we want to ensure that everybody has the right to have their case heard. But what we're trying to do is clarify and streamline the process somewhat so that it's less cumbersome and more predictable for employers, so that there's sort of more of a certainty of the outcome and that there will be a fair process for everybody. So I guess that's sort of a before and after picture, and the before picture is what you had asked about, Representative Sylvester, is what's our process for identifying violations. And then the second stage would be this penalties and appeals process.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And one of the reasons that I wanted you to go through that is that often this is maybe my 30th bill in 6 years over this section of law. And we often hear testimony about somebody making a computer mistake. And as all of a sudden they open up a letter with a $20,000 fine. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear that there is both a pre-process as well as a process during levying the fine for the employer to come forward and make good, and then also a process to appeal the decision after it's been done. And so at which time, from my understanding, folks have been able to settle, if economic circumstances, mean that they can't pay whatever the fine is, or to put payment plans, all of those sorts of things, that this is a very reasonable process. And so I appreciate your going through that. And my question is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I guess if I could add one thing, it's that you will, within the next 2 weeks, you will be seeing our annual report on wage and hour complaints and the results, investigations and violations resulting. And a lot of what you just asked about, I think, will be further explained in that report. So we're very proud of the work that we're doing. We think that we're effectively supporting both workers and employers in the state by hopefully more effectively enforcing employment law. But thank you for the question, and that's all I'll say.
Thank you, Director Rowland. Looks like Representative Bradstreet has a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Rowland. In cases where you find a wage violation in a certain type of business, and you find that perhaps the employer has misinterpreted the law, is there a way of notifying other people in that same type of business who may be doing the same thing, so they can correct their deficiencies, or is that even possible?
It absolutely is possible, and we do try to do that with our outreach and education efforts. We provide sometimes bulletins or other information on our webpage for employers, questions and answers, frequently asked questions, those types of things. We also conduct classes, sometimes outreach to particular sectors. Like, for instance, what you said is, if there's a violation of one employer in a sector, can we communicate that to the others in the sector? And we try to work with employer groups to do that particularly. And then also, we've just recently posted on our website a list of the violations that have come to final agency action. And in there, you'll see that there are several employers who have entered into compliance agreements with the department to ensure that not only have they corrected the violations and paid the back wages, but they're achieving a better understanding of what their obligations are as an employer. And we recognize that, and we'll sometimes reduce the penalties as a result. But our first mission really is to achieve compliance. We'd rather do that than punish, employers. So our efforts are around promoting compliance and helping workers and employers understand what the law is.
Very good. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for the director? You missed my when I noticed that I was muted once again. Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Director, for being here. And if you would make yourself available for the work session, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
We look forward to your report.
Thank you.
We'll bring in Mr. Young. Welcome back.
Thank you, Representative Sylvester and members of the committee. I'm still Jeff Young, and I'll be brief here. I'm testifying on behalf of the Maine Employment Lawyers Association. We support the substantive rules proposed by the Bureau of Labor Standards. Many of my colleagues in MELA handle what we call wage theft claims. Those are claims in particular where employees have been misclassified as independent contractors. There's a lot of incentive for employers to misclassify employees because they don't wind up having to pay workers' compensation premiums, unemployment insurance, Social Security, and Medicare tax, among others. I had one memorable case that I handled where an employer was found not paying for the 10-minute break times that it offered employees. Didn't have to do that, but most employers do that. It said, even after an opinion from the Maine DOL that they owed the money, they said, well, we're not really covered by state law, we're only covered by federal law. So, which is definitely not the case. So we think that establishing these penalties and clear guidance and having escalating penalties for multiple violations of the law will act as a deterrence and serve to assure that Maine workers receive the wages that they labor so hard to earn. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer. And I do have one question for Mr. Rowland, which is, I'm wondering how much money was actually collected in penalties as distinct from back pay. I'm not sure if the report disclosed that, but I'd be interested in knowing about that. I thank the committee for your concern and time.
Thank you, Mr. Young, and I will try to keep that in the forefront of my thoughts when we get that report. And if not, we look forward to you prompting me to remember. Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Young? Seeing none, thank you, sir. And I believe that that is it for folks testifying in favor. Is that correct, Justin?
That is correct.
Then if you could bring in Mr. Gore, if he is present. We're moving to folks testifying in opposition to the bill. If anyone is here testifying neither for nor against, if you'd raise your hand, but otherwise, Mr. Gore, the Zoom is yours.
Thank you, Representative Sylvester. Members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing, I'm Peter Gore, the Executive Vice President of the Maine State Chamber of Commerce, and I am not here to oppose LD 1925. I am a neither for nor againster today.
I keep messing that up today. The neither for nor against have gotten short shrift for me all day long, and I apologize for that.
It's okay. I don't want Director Rowland to freak out here because he was very kind to do a meeting with us yesterday to go through the functions of the rules so we would understand clearly what it was the department is trying to do. And to be honest, we have no issues with it whatsoever. We think that his briefing and his explanation were very helpful to us. And on top of that, it is going to provide a level of certainty to businesses. And in some ways, as we discussed, a fail-safe for them. We do, Representative Sylvester, you're correct. I'm one of the people who often talks about an accidental violation versus a willful violation. And this gives the department the latitude to determine based on the percentages and fines, et cetera, the multipliers, how just a punishment they should levy on the employers who violates that. Honestly, in looking at the number of violations and the department's recent press release on that, it's unfortunate that they had to take the level of action they had to take against 29 employers. But when you think about the number of employers that operate in this state of all size, the fact that there are only 25 of them, and in that group of 25, there were really a half dozen of egregious violations. The rest were, it appeared to be just mistakes, something like that. It was good. It pleased us. It's unfortunate that there are incidents like the one Mr. Young talks about when people misclassify people purposefully. But as we said to Director Rowland yesterday, those are the guys that give us a headache and bring me in front of this committee to discuss legislation. And to that, I would just end my testimony in this way. One of the things that we said to Director Rowland yesterday was, and this committee is free to do whatever it wants when it comes to legislation, obviously. But you're going to take up a number of pieces of legislation this session that deal with fines, increasing fines, and the method of levying fines. And there was even talk about reviewing Chapter 7 in Title 26 regarding the various workplace protection violation fines that are in there. And it occurs to me this. it would be helpful if you're going to do that, that you look at this issue in its totality and not in pieces. Well, we're fine with the rules that are being discussed today. One could make the argument that it's being done in a vacuum outside of the other different pieces of legislation like 616, 1332, a couple of these other bills that have been discussed and are going to be before you this session. That looking at this issue in its totality is perhaps a better way to go, and involving stakeholders in the system to make sure that whatever is done in terms of fines and penalties are done in a fair way and don't unduly punish businesses that truly don't intend to create wage and hour violations or other workplace protection violations against their employees. With that, I'll finish up my testimony and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you, Mr. Gore. Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Gore? Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, you can chime in on this too when you, if you should have a comment. This is being done as an emergency to take effect immediately upon passage or when approved. Do you think it'd be wiser to do the normal way, the non-emergency status, to give employers notice that the department maybe now has sharper teeth than they had before, and they really mean business?
Is that a question to me, Representative?
Yes. Or if you haven't, yeah.
Honestly, I sort of consider this inside baseball for the businesses in general. They know that they can be held accountable for wage and hour violations and other type of workplace violations. So that shouldn't be a surprise to them. Again, the way I understand what Director Rowland was saying was that it's a multiplier that can be, the department has always had the prerogative to look at these different fines and violations, decide how penalties will be delivered under Title 26. This puts a little bit more of the multipliers of how those penalties will be assessed in rulemaking. It's easier for employers to see that, quite frankly, than a sort of amorphous, well, the department has the ability to levy these fines, but it's sort of in their prerogative. This really lays it out. So I'm not sure there's a reason why this shouldn't be an emergency. But again, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. So how this, that's a question perhaps is better to Director Rowland than myself.
And since you invited me in, Representative Bradstreet, I'll just say that I think that that Mr. Gore is correct, which he will hopefully just capture in video.
I screenshotted it, Representative.
But I think that what it allows them to do is for employers to come in and say, okay, I'm being pegged at this multiplier, but I have hired an accountant to make sure that this will never happen again. And so we can then scale you back to a multiplier of if we're at that level. So it gives the department discretion, but it allows everybody to see what it is. It isn't just some number that comes out, that an employer would wonder, where did they get that number? And I think that that's very helpful for employers.
And I will say, from our conversation with Director Rowland yesterday, the manner in which the employer in question responds to the violation is contingent upon, how hard the hammer falls, quite frankly. If you push back, if you don't pay back wages, if you continue to operate in the manner in which you're operating, you're going to pay more of a fine. And Director Rowland made it clear that, the vast majority of employers respond immediately. They pay the back wages, they deal with the issue at hand, they correct the mistake, and the department treats the fine that's levied against them in that, in that manner. They basically, they're not going to fine them at the same. I won't say they'll cut them a break, but they'll fine them without the additional fines, the additional penalties.
Yep. And a lot of them, if they pay right away, they don't even end up at the fine section.
That is correct.
So,
yeah.
All right. Are there any other questions for Mr. Gore? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You as well. Justin, is there anyone else here to testify? Hearing none, seeing none, I would hereby close the hearing on LD 1925, a resolve regarding legislative review of portions of Chapter 9, rules governing administrative civil money penalties for labor law violations, a major substantive rule of Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Standards, which I will then from now on be regarding as its acronym, which is much clearer than reading that title. That is the end of our work today, folks. I appreciate everyone being here and all of you participating in such a great way. Mr. Langland, do you have anything for us before we send folks off on their day? It's sunny down here. I hope it's sunny where you are. And we will see you very soon. And look to your emails for your schedules and all of that sort of thing, because I don't have it in front of me. Appreciate y'all. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.